Good evening, guys. Welcome to another episode of Joshin-Strike. I got Napster here from the Vantage Navy squad, the Academy squad for Vantage in particular. So, how's that project going so far? How do you get involved in that project?
Well, at the moment, it's going pretty well. There's some hiccups that we've run into, but it's going pretty well overall. The end goal, I think, is being achieved. Not quite at the pace we've wanted due to some interruptions with complications on the main roster, as I'm sure you've seen over the last couple of months. But it's still moving along, and I got involved in it with the owner Hoax or Hayden. Probably about 4 months ago is when I probably started being in discussion between us, where I pretty much was trying to get into the scene, and he was basically, I was speaking with him about how to get into it, and he was just kind of speaking to me about how it's typically done and how I need to start in certain leagues. And I was like, have you ever considered, considering you own an organization, have you ever considered like starting a academy teams, similar to like Mouse Next and all of their academy teams? And he was like, yeah, I have. And then about a month later, he messages me and he goes, hey, so I wanted to start an academy team. And so we started working on that together. And I mean, here we are now. So we're doing not as good as we would like to be, but I think we're about on track for this season in terms of individual performance. So we're looking to keep progressing our individuals throughout the season and come out the other side with some really strong individuals who are ready to go to that next level of play if needed.
So I was going to say overall, what sort of open team or anything like that were you in before this? And, also as well, what's your role within the team?
I actually really didn't have much experience in a team before this, but I kind of always felt like I was ready to start getting into it, just from the way that I felt I carried myself in regular matches in terms of the way I would communicate with people. And I started making associations with people who were at that level, and they would encourage me. And so I thought maybe I can make that step. And so I did. And so I pretty much jumped in with this team. But my current role within the team is, I think it's often regarded as probably a star rifler position, just the position that takes a lot of the engagements and really initiates the gunfights a lot. I've taken a couple of different roles between last season and this season. I've been IGL and AWP, and now I'm star rifle. So it's been a very big shift between then and now, but I'm willing to kind of do whatever it takes to put myself out there as a skilled player and hopefully show what I am capable of doing.
So it's like kind of the star rifler role. What's the difference compared to like an AWP or an IGL role in particular? Is it like a more pressure or less pressure, or is it just basically get the points on the board sort of thing?
Well, given what I have played as all three, I would say the main difference is that you kind of have to be very aware of where you are compared to your team, because if you're told to take some map control, you might want to instantly do that as your ass, but it's usually not usually, but sometimes it's not the best idea to instantly take that map control, because you're taking it at disadvantage, what's called a low percentage fight. And so you want to make sure you're always taking the high percentage. So I think the biggest difference is you have less freedom compared to an AWP player who has a lot more freedom throughout the map. They kind of almost dictate themselves where they want to go, unless the IGL has a specific strat in mind. The AWP will typically say, I want to go here, and then the IGL kind of just goes, okay. But a star rifler, the IGL goes, hey, go here, and then you say, yep. So it's a bit different in that way, but I definitely say that it's almost a different skill set. I wouldn't say one's harder than the other. They're very different almost in every way.
So with the Vantage Academy overall, what's the Academy team looking at the moment? And how long have you guys been together?
This current roster has been together for probably a month and a half, I think, from memory. Maybe a month. And that's due to a couple of unfortunate circumstances where we've had some players who we've had to replace last minute. But it's progressing. It's progressing slowly but steadily. We've made some adjustments recently, though, which will hopefully help accelerate that, especially now that Vantage has a more established position in their matches and how they're progressing. Now that they're becoming more steady, we're able to get a bit more assistance from Hoax where needed. And we've also gotten a new coach on board who's been able to help us a lot. So the adjustments within the team are helping us kind of make the extra step that we need to actually achieve the goals we want.
What sort of goals are you looking to achieve? And also, who's your new coach?
Well, the goals for the team isn't really... There's not especially a goal for the team itself. It's more so, obviously we want to win as much as we can. Of course, winning's great.
What would be a good season? Like, it would be like, 5 or 6 games, 7 games won? Like, what would be a good season?
Well, of course, a good season would be no losses, but realistically, we know that there are teams in the league that are better than us at the moment. That's, I think, undisputable, unfortunately. But I would say this season, I think we'll end at about 10 wins. And I think that's pretty achievable, and I think that's a comfortable position to end, given the complications we've had. But a good season for us is just as many wins as we can get, because our goal at the end of the day isn't as much to win, but it's more to develop players within the team so that we can then push them into a high level of play. So hopefully next season when an intermediate series comes around, we have players who are already ready to compete at that intermediate level and then push them up into ECL. So if something like Semper Fi comes along, or Talon again, and we have 6 or 7 players who are taken out of our ECL pool of players, we want to have teams that can then be looked at and go, this player is promising, we can bring them in, because we've developed the fundamentals of Team Counter-Strike in them.
So in particular as well, would, even if you, let's just say you don't get 10 wins, would, being competitive against, the top teams as per se in Open be good enough? Or is that how it goes? Let's just say you lose 13-10 to Semper Fi. Would you guys be happy with that?
Right now, if we went 13-10 against Semper Fi, I would be exceedingly impressed and a bit surprised. But if we were in a better position in terms of where we want to be, I think 13-10 would be really good for us. Very, very good. I think against teams like Semper Fi, I would expect, once our players are at the level that we're hoping to get them to, 13-10, 13-8 maybe, I think is still a good way to look at that, because you're showing that you are competitive with one of the best teams in the country. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want players who are competitive with those teams so that they can be looked at as replacements for other teams.
Obviously, it's early days, but do you think this team has a ceiling to get there? And if so, what's the biggest improvements that need to be made? And also, not to mention as well, what are the things that you feel like you've achieved already?
I think that I don't think there is a... I personally can't see a ceiling with the team at the moment. I think there's still a very long way to go before we can even see that, personally, because we have inexperienced players in terms of in a team environment, and so we need to teach them things like communication and getting an understanding of how rotations work at that level of play. And so once we've established that within our players, we can start encouraging them to basically improve on themselves. And so once that happens, I think we'll start being able to actually see what our ceiling looks like. And I don't think our ceiling is going to be open. I think that once we've got an established foundation and players and where everything is set, I think that we'll be able to achieve well past open.
I'd say overall, sometimes you can't see where the ceiling is at the moment until you got the team Counter-Strike and the team chemistry down. And then once you can see the ceiling from there, particularly be like, okay, how far is this team going to go? If we execute all our strategies absolutely perfectly, where are we at? It can be quite a difficult thing overall. What about yourself overall? What do you want to achieve as a player in particular? At the moment, that is your current goal. Obviously, not your end goal, because end goal is number one player on HLTV.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I think that's probably everyone's healthy goal.
Yeah.
Very achievable for everyone, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
But at the moment, I would say that my short-term goals within the next year probably is to hopefully build myself up to a player who's good enough to play at an ECL level. You know, whether that is through the Vantage pipeline or through a different team. I wouldn't know, right? But that's where my short-term goal lies. Long-term, obviously, I would love to play internationally and be good enough to compete at that level. But I can tell that I have quite a way to go before I get there, in terms of my understanding of the game, how I play with the team, and how I carry myself in and out of the match. I think he has a lot of work to before I can say, yeah, I can compete with these guys.
Do you have any like recommendations? Like, do you look at any content pieces or YouTube videos from pro players or ex-pro players, even coaches? And if so, like, which ones would you recommend to like newer players?
If you were a newer player, it depends how new.
Yeah.
But
new to like Team CS.
Yeah, so I've gotten a lot of help from a lot of people as I've been coming up, mostly through Vantage. You know, the players in there are great people and always willing to help. But I've also found help from players outside of Vantage.
Yep.
So I myself find it easier to go to someone who I know, well, not know, but will hopefully have the answer for the specific question I'm looking for. And so if I was giving a recommendation to someone who's getting into Team Counter-Strike, I would probably say try your best to build a network of players who you can go to for questions. So for myself, when I was AWPing and IGLing, I would go to Night Raid.
Yep.
And I would go to him with a lot of my questions because he was experienced in both of those. So I would go to him and ask him questions, or I would go to Pain of Mind Freak for AWPing, or I would go to Vision of Semper Fi for rifling advice. And so I think the best way to develop is to develop your network first, so that you can ask questions, because you won't always find the answer you're looking for in a YouTube video.
Yeah.
You know, you might see a YouTube video that's 10 things to do to improve your aim instantly, and none of them work for you. You go and ask someone, hey, what do you do to warm up your aim? And they tell you, you try that and it works, right? So I think that's probably the best advice I could give, is to build a network of players who you can ask for help.
Yeah. Also, as well, like, you know, like there's obviously things out there, obviously Nades Out, which you actually addressed as well. Any, like, for Team Counter-Strike in particular, any teams that you prefer watching on how to set up a philosophy or even set up a team structure, like, to learn more about Team Counter-Strike?
That can be, I think that's a difficult one, but a lot of people, when they're getting into Team Counter-Strike, they'll typically look at the tier 1 teams, the best in the world, your Navis, your Spirits, FaZe, that kind of stuff, and they'll look at that and go, that's how I want to play Counter-Strike, which isn't necessarily a terrible idea, but the problem with that is at that level, the players, it's very counter-strat based. So you don't usually see what they actually would typically do. So I would recommend, if you want to study how Teams Counter-Strike is played, you should watch teams who obviously aren't bad, but you want to watch a team who's maybe in the top 50 instead of one that's in the top 20. Because usually these tier 2, 3 teams, they actually play the game more reactive based, and they play it more standard rather than, they typically do this, let's do this to counter that. So you could watch any of the teams in the Australian ECL level, and you'd probably get a lot of information out of that. Or
CCT?
Some tier 2 and 3. Yeah, so you can watch CCT is actually a great one. A lot of teams in there would fill that category as well, yeah.
Yep. So overall, 'cause I got a lot of different answers, like, you know, from tier 1 teams. A lot of people said Heroic and Virtus Pro. What tier 2 team in particular would you, like, watch out of it? You know, would it be a Gaiman Gladiators? Would it be Aurora? Would it be, like, MIBR or something like that? Like, you know, which tier 2 team did you just pick out generally to just watch for, like, you know, standard play?
Well, I'm not sure if they're really considered tier 2 anymore, but I think 3D Max is a really good
Yep.
example of a team that
They're tier 2.
isn't at the top of the level, but they are. I've heard 1.5, so I wasn't too sure. But
Yep.
some people, I think they can compete with some tier 1 teams, but I think they're softly in tier 2. So I think they're a good option. MIBR is also really good, but I think there are times where they rely a little bit too much on star power.
Yeah, and Sani.
Yeah, unfortunately. But that's not always a bad thing, because if you want to be that star player, then you can have a look at how he is best utilized, which can be really good information. But I would definitely recommend teams like 3D Max. Aurora is another good one. Just teams that don't necessarily have a star player to them. I think are really good to watch if you want to figure out how to play normally, I guess.
Yeah,
like play a standard game.
Because I was talking obviously to ASAP. ASAP said Virtus Pro. All the Vertex boys said Heroic. And I sitting there going like, these teams don't have like a star player, like as per se. Like, they got James IGL that watched them. They got Cadian. This is Cadian's Heroic, by the way, not current Heroic.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and they watch that all the time. Like, I'm thinking like, there was never ever mention of Spirit, Na'Vi, FaZe, or anything like that. It was always the teams that had nothing really in it. And it really bounced down, because if you watched Heku's video talking about team dynamics,
that doesn't sound familiar to me, but I could have at some point.
Yeah, so it's talking about, the balance between a team, that you can't have 5 good players in a team, otherwise it's worse than it is. But having a mixture of good and, good social vibes and whatnot makes a team a lot better than a team with 5 good players. Because if you notice
100%.
like, there's only one team that I've seen that have 4 good players in it that have achieved something. And do you want to guess?
I mean, I would assume it would have to be FaZe.
Oh, no. The other team, the other one. Nico left G2.
Oh, G2, yeah, I mean... Yeah, I would definitely say G2 has a lot of star power.
Yeah.
That's for sure, yeah. But, yeah, I think FaZe was the original kind of super team, is what you would call them. But, yeah, G2 definitely more so recently. But, yeah, I think that what we're starting to see with the new version of Astralis is hopefully a return to old for what Astralis was. I think the old Astralis, when they had their era, was the perfect representation of 5 players who are good, but they're not, the greats, and they were able to achieve, more than any other team in history. So I think we need more teams that have very well-established team dynamics, because chemistry, like you said, within a team is absolutely the number one important thing, I would say. Like, you can have 5 great players, but if they don't get along, you're probably not going to win anything, right? So
okay, as you're like a newer player in the academy teams and whatnot, what sort of like practicing do you do in particular? And like, what sort of people would it work for? Like, before a match or anything like that, or just on a day where you scrim before you scrim?
Me personally, I usually will do a half an hour of deathmatch on a server of your choice, I suppose. So I'll usually do deathmatch, and then I'll do some retakes with my teammates, usually in probably the last 20 minutes, because it helps warm up communication, helps you get prepared for peaks from different angles, and you're not getting swamped with people. So typically I'd use deathmatch to warm up just individual raw aim and some mechanical things like counter strafing. And then I would say retakes is very useful for just developing the game sense of knowing where people will be coming from and stuff like that. But a typical practice day for us usually consists of 1 to 2 hours of theory, depending on how much there is to be discussed that day. And then we'll usually play 2 scrims against various teams. And then after that, we'll have about a half an hour to 1 hour, depending on what needs to be discussed, debrief to go over basically what has happened in those 2 scrims. If there was some mistakes, then we go, hey guys, these were the mistakes, and general pointers, improvements, whatever, and we discuss it there. And then if it's needed to be discussed further, the next day we will add that extra hour of theory and we'll go over that, and then we'll continue doing our typical theory work then.
Yep. Is there anything in particular, like, do you do like separate retakes or separate pugs of each other to get used to like to working off each other? Like, you know, for a retake, like a 2v2, for example, or a 3v3. So you guys just know what the other person's going to do and the other person's going to peek and whatnot on a particular retake, and getting used to that person's habits and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say we do that. When we do retakes, we do that a lot. But it's more so when we pug. When we pug, it's more of a casual environment. We still play the game properly to build the habits and the repetition, but we have a bit more of a relaxed feeling. But then when we do scrims, that's when we really put in a lot of effort to make sure that we're working together. And we're doing our best to facilitate an environment where if a mistake is made, it's not punished, and you're not kind of put down for that. And instead, it's just kind of a, hey man, can you do this for me next time? Yep. So we're trying to develop players to be able to very easily take that criticism. And I think most of the people in the team, I think, are there or are getting there, which is good. That's what we want. So yeah, I think, that's we do pugs and scrims and retakes to develop the kind of chemistry between each player.
So what's the like main thing that you guys are practicing on at the moment? Is it like crosshair placement, nade setups, like executes in general, defaults, or what's going on at the moment for you guys?
At the moment, I would probably say, well, without revealing too much, we don't want to say where we're weak, but I'd probably say our biggest point of development right now would probably be just kind of getting a general understanding of how to properly take map control with each other.
Yeah.
Because that's hugely important, is map control. It's one of the most fundamental necessities of Team Counter-Strike. So it can definitely be a bit of a challenge, especially when you're pulling players who have only ever played a pug, and you're bringing them in and you're saying, hey man, I want you to help two other random people who you've known for a week take this part of the map. It can take a while to develop that, but we're getting there, which is really good. We are making progress towards that. But yeah, that's probably our biggest point of focus at the moment.
Yeah, because like overall, like you look at tier 1 teams and tier 2 teams and how like they use a utility to take control of the map, and then they build up from there. It's like kind of like chess in a way, where you build and develop your pieces to be at specific points, and you really just pick certain points to attack, or where you can build from there in particular. Like, let's say for Ancient, because Ancient's a big one for map control. Taking middle and lane as either T's or CT's is so important, because if you don't have any of those, you can't really attack anything but A side. It's essentially train, basically, but you know, instead of A side, it's B. It's so important to be able to take that map control, because let's just say most CTs just throw a Molotov and they put a smoke in front of it as well to prevent aggression from catwalk. And I don't know what they do to lane, but either lane can be a bit of a dogfight, or it can be just easily taken by the Ts. But yeah, map control is very, very important, and you know, you see a lot of tier 1 and tier teams do it, and yeah, you know, what's the hardest thing about like taking map control in particular? Is it the utility setup, or is it the first person, second person going in, or what do you find it?
The most difficult part of taking map control, it depends on how your opponent's set up. So if we were to be versing a team that's much better than us, the most difficult part of taking the map control would be they would have kind of a more polished way of doing it, and they would have more repetitions in doing it. And so we would struggle simply because they would be prepared for more, basically, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if we want to talk about Ancient, typically when you're fighting on T side, you're fighting for either mid or shelf.
Yeah.
If you're fighting for mid, then you smoke off Jaguar and you kind of just ignore it and then run past it, and you fight from top of shelf, and then you come out of the mid smoke and you fight together. Now, a more experienced team would probably see that smoke come in and instantly throw a Molotov shelf and just be ready to play counter flash. Whereas a less experienced team would probably just get kind of demolished by that, which is what we've seen through playing scrims and stuff as well. So map control is definitely coming down to who has the better preparation for it.
Yeah.
I would definitely say that that's the biggest determining factor for map control.
So with scrimming in general, how are you finding the scrimming scene within Australia? Like, are you getting a lot of scrims? Because last time I talked to a few players about this, they had, people not turning up or teams not turning up and whatnot. How's the scrimming scene now, as per se?
I mean, it's not great, but it's not horrible.
Mm-hmm.
The worst part about it, I would say, is the quantity of teams. On some days, you might have 8 teams that are looking for a scrim, which is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But then other days, you have 2 or 3, and usually they'll only be scrimming each other. So, and for us, it's difficult to find teams that are kind of at our level because I can only really think of maybe 3 teams that have a similar experience level to us, and they're pretty typically taken for scrims, you know, and we don't really want to be scrimming these teams that are significantly better than us right now, because if we're just getting absolutely steamrolled, there's not a whole lot for us to learn. From what I've heard, it would be like a team like I don't know, I can't think of one off the top of my head. Maybe Shanghai Sharks.
Okay,
yeah, it would be like Shanghai Sharks versing someone like FlyQuest. If we were to verse someone like Mindfreak, for example, we're not going to learn anything because they're just going to run at us and beat us with raw mechanical skill. But there is a good amount of prac out there in terms of scrims, so not really much to complain about, really.
Just don't scrim Mindfreak on Nuke, that's all I'm going to say. You might as well give him like a 30-0 victory.
Yeah, we've played Mindfreak twice, and I think the most amount of rounds we got was maybe 5.
Oh, jeez.
And it was pretty rough, but they are actually pretty good to scrim Mindfreak. They're not, they don't run you down. They do play it pretty typically, but yeah, from what I've heard, versing FlyQuest is a rough ordeal.
Oh, right. This is because Dexter comes at you with a Mac 10 or something.
Oh yeah, I've heard that they just run it down every time. Which, you don't want to do that. If you're trying to practice, you don't want to be getting run down.
Yeah, definitely.
But, yeah,
definitely not. Anyways, we're going to talk about FlyQuest. We're going to slide on to these tier 1 teams in particular. How overall are you enjoying your experience in the OCE scene before we clock on to our first topic?
I think the OCE scene is, well, to be totally honest, it's very underdeveloped, and I think that's probably the biggest issue there is to look at. When I tried to get into it again, when I tried to get into it last time, maybe 5 years ago, there was, you had Cybergamer, which was consistently running different levels of tournaments, which had a very clear progression, like ladder, and there was quite a few teams filling out each level, and it was just good. And unfortunately, when they were acquired or turned into LPL, it wasn't carried over as efficiently as I think it probably could have been. And so from what I've been told, there are some efforts to change that on their end. But for now, I think the worst part about playing in the team environment in OCE is just the lack of teams and options to play. You're really limited to just open league, unfortunately. And whereas in Europe and North America, you've got probably 10 tournaments a month, right? So if not more in Europe. So I think we just need more options for tournament organizers to actually put forward an actual tournament that people are going to want to play, like the Spark Cup.
Yeah, like I was saying, you'll notice that as well. Actually, we'll talk about it during the Sparks Cup as well. That I've noticed a few other tournaments that have gone basically missing. But anyways, let's talk about our first topic. So our first topic overall is going to be about the Blast Premier Final. So that was a very interesting thing. I felt like that tournament felt like a funeral because it's like going, it's going to be the last time ever, the last time this. I'm just like, soon they're going to have like the commentators in the broadcast in white and black and give me like, okay, is it actually gone?
Yeah.
But the company
that would be unfortunate. Like, it is unfortunate that we won't get more of that though.
overall, I thought their new sort of tournaments, so bounty and whatnot, and then the top tier tournaments, and then the second tier tournaments, actually really really good. So you get your tier one event, top 8 teams. You get your different format where you can run at people for money, basically. Where like if you get you choose the teams that you want to verse. If you want to take down a big team, you get more prize money, basically. So it's going to encourage some of these teams to just really go for it. Like they're like, hey, we've got a map strength against complexity. We can take those mofos down and stuff like that. And then the last one, I forget the last one actually, but it's just a bigger tournament where a lot of tier 2 teams can be in. They had to adjust it somewhat with the Valve rules, but they allow like wildcard teams to inject themselves in and have like a big 32 team tournament, which is it just envelops all the formats into one where it's like really different. Like each tournament has its own different uses and different advantages and disadvantages. The downside of it though is just what Blast can offer, and also the fact the scandal around Blast was the Astralis being allowed in with that emergency sub. Like I wonder like if teams are putting that in the back of their mind that Blast could all make questionable decisions that really lack integrity. But overall, I think the format they've nailed it is just that last decision could be a lingering thing whether they pick a Blast, a Star Ladder, ESL, or PGL.
Yeah. No, I think it will definitely be. It gives the teams more freedom to kind of be willing to sit out some events. That's what when we were talking about Astralis earlier, when they had their era, that was one thing that they did is they would just choose not to play an event to avoid burnout, which is a problem we're starting to see with the current Na'Vi roster. They got taken out of Blast very early. A lot earlier than anyone was expecting, myself included. And I think that they're really starting to experience a burnout. And I think that having the opportunity for teams to maybe skip one tournament to get more practice in and just maybe not be as full on, and then come into the next tournament and go, hey guys, we've had this much prac. Let's shoot for a top team, right? Let's shoot for, like you said, a complexity. Let's shoot for a Mouse or something like that. And it gives them the opportunity to, if they win that, it didn't matter they didn't play the last tournament because they've managed to recuperate the losses, or not the losses, but the missed gains, I suppose. So I think it will help with that kind of stuff, yeah.
I'd say overall, Na'Vi just got flattened. I didn't see anything too bad with Na'Vi's playstyle in particular. I do recall JL making that comment, and I believe that comment was jocular in nature. Because the funny part was because he did make that joke, and there was a whole debacle of HLTV publishing that quote because they made it seem like that he was burning out, but he mentioned that as well, that it was in a joke. I'd say with Na'Vi, they got straight up flattened. I mean, both teams like flattened them overall. I was just gonna say for Na'Vi, that's just pure embarrassment that you go out. Especially, like, they had to take on FaZe as well, and FaZe are a very gritty team. But the way Na'Vi went out was pretty meek, to be honest. I mean, they lost a map pick, and then they lost a third map with really no fight in it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they definitely didn't put on the show that I think anyone was expecting, I mean, I think the most surprising part was losing 2-0 to Astralis. I mean, a newly formed Astralis that's been together for, a month? I mean, I think that's a pretty telltale sign that either they need to change, or they need to just stop for a minute and then just try again, give themselves a chance to have a break. Because despite the fact that it was written off as a joke, I think burnout is a real thing with players. And if you're flying all over the world constantly, month at a time, you are going to get burnt out. You're going to get exhausted, and you're going to get to the point where you're thinking to yourself, man, I just need a break. Because, flying from Europe to Singapore and then having maybe 2 or 3 days break, and then, having to play what is a mentally taxing game for hours is definitely going to not be your best friend. You're not going to be enjoying that, really, at the end of the day. So hopefully we can see some more from them in the major, because I think the structure that they're running is working very well. So I just hope that we can see more from all of these great teams at the major. I'm really looking forward to just seeing how everything turns out.
I think overall as well, it's really hard to study Astralis because like Astralis haven't really played many games with Katie in that roster other than that Blast series where they got absolutely destroyed. So it's really difficult to really like watch demos and even counter-strat, because you said that earlier as well, that tier 1 sees a lot of counter-stratting. But how's Na'Vi meant to counter-strat Astralis when I've never seen them, but Astralis has seen them basically. So that hasn't helped. That hasn't helped. But overall, like, of course, FaZe, like, their first FaZe so many times, and it just felt like they got out-gritted by FaZe, because FaZe is one of those teams that they always hang around. You can't ever put them to bed until you've got 13 rounds on the board.
Yeah. No, FaZe are like the final boss for a lot of teams. You've got sometimes they get absolutely washed out by, G2 or Na'Vi at times, stuff like that, but you still have these teams that are below them that will struggle really badly because they just have so much experience. These players have been around, mainly Rain and Carrigan have been around since the Stone Age, it feels like, in Counter-Strike terms. So, with Carrigan's ability to have a loose mid-round calling style, I think it really makes it difficult to counter-strat them as well, because he's not going to go, we're going to counter-strat it, what do we do, right? He's going to assume it's happening, and he's just going to make a decision, and it's going to benefit the team in one way or another.
Talk about FaZe, though. That second map against Spirit was something to behold, okay? The most unlikeliest of heroes. So you had Carrigan literally trying to get FaZe over the line. He had Zontix on the other side trying to get Spirit over the line. It was the most... Like, it was the most, like, what the hell's going on? Where's Donk? Where's Brokey? Where's Frozen? It was just Carrigan. I think Carrigan at one point got, like, a 3K on entry. It's just like, what are your star players doing?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. When you start seeing your typical not top fraggers start putting up numbers, you know that someone on the team is kicking themselves because they're thinking, oh, man, how am I letting a Carrigan, the GOAT IGL, outfrag me when I'm the AWPer? So it's definitely difficult to watch a player who is typically a lower individual performer than you, absolutely smashing you. So and I've got to give Carrigan some praise, because he has been improving as an individual lately. Considering how he's getting up there in age. He's still putting up numbers, all things considered. He's never been considered a good individual fragger, but I think from what I've heard, he's putting in a lot of effort to improve that capability of himself, and I think he's doing a really good job with that.
I was going to say, overall, like, he had some pretty good ratings. He's still the lowest rating IGL by quite a bit. We can go to Astralis, because we did talk about Astralis earlier. Astralis' semi-final appearance was pretty meek, to be honest. Spirit just murked them. Okay, like that BO3, it's a 2-1 to Spirit, but neither map was close. Like, neither map was close. It's just basically getting swept away, basically. It was really, like, the FaZe Spirit game was a lot closer than the Astralis Spirit, and I felt really bad for Astralis, because Astralis, they didn't even fight on that third map. They just got absolutely killed. Yeah.
No, it's definitely difficult to fight against a team like Spirit when they have Donk and Shiro, and they're almost always on it. And then if Zontix is on it as well, I think it's just almost impossible to shut them down. And I think Astralis has made an interesting decision by focusing so heavily on Vertigo, considering how despised of a map that really is by just about every team out there. I think it's a really good decision for them to focus so heavily on that, because it's almost a guaranteed free map every time, which is what they've shown.
Yeah, I think either Stiko or Maui mentioned it, that, like, if you really want to go for these gamble picks against a top team, pick a map that no one really picks, and, like, they ban in the second half of it, and Vertigo's it. So they will have to start learning how to play Vertigo, stuff like that. Because I remember this on Nuke, when Nuke was the hated map, and, like, people would pick Nuke as the gamble pick, the 50-50. They'd be like, fuck you, let's go Nuke. And then it was Ancient. Ancient was the map after that, like, and then it was Vertigo. And Anubis used to be that, but now everyone plays Anubis because, reasons. But Anubis had that little time as well. And I think teams that are, like, tier 2, tier 1 should be cracking these sort of maps that you don't see tier 1 play so much, because you can put it out there. Because a lot of tier 1 teams rely on taking the opponent's map pick and sending it 2-0, because they will pick second always. But if you're able to win your home round, you've put a lot of pressure on them, because they've got to defend their home ground and win the third map, which can be a toss-up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely expanding your map pool is one of the most critical things you can do as a team. Going into a best of 3 environment, you really want to be comfortable on at least 4 maps typically, because you can only ban 3.
Yep.
So you need to be comfortable on those other 4, otherwise you run the risk of getting absolutely steamrolled. So that's one thing that I've been acknowledging, is that we're trying to become proficient or good, I guess, on 2 maps, and then become comfortable on 2 more. So that way we have a stable, reliable pick that we can pick, and then in playoffs we can try and get that second map that we enjoy playing, and then we're comfortable on whatever our opponent's going to pick. Because let's be honest, if we're able to ban Dust 2 and Nuke, our opponent's going to ban Vertigo, and then we don't have to worry after that. So yeah, I mean, I think map pool depth is absolutely crucial, especially with the rising amount of best of 5s. Really shows that as well. The best of 5 at Blast. Granted, we didn't get to watch all 5 maps, but there was a chance that you'd have to play almost every map in the map pool, and not many teams, especially at the tier 3 level and even tier 2 level, are going to have a map pool that deep. They're only going to have a proficiency in 4 maps, really.
Also, I forgot to mention as well, we actually did mention, because I was about to go into teams that came like third and whatnot, we did mention Liquid. I gotta say, Liquid are very unlucky. Like, it seems like in Group B, there just had to be one team to miss out, because you had a lot of good teams as well. Liquid completed a 13-0 over G2 and lost that series, okay? And they lost it pretty weakly as well. Like, I mean, you 13-0 them and then you lose 13-6, 13-6. It's like, come on, guys, go fight for it, okay? But to their credit, they won the first map against Vitality, but then they lost the second 2 again. And I feel like Liquid, they can't match the top teams for a long point of time, okay? The longer the series goes on, the weaker they get, because literally they fell off the face of the earth against Vitality, but they did fight back on Nuke. I give them that credit. They did fight back very hard on Nuke, and that was a part of JKS in particular. But it just feels like they're just so lethargic on second and third maps compared to where they are on the first map in particular.
Yeah. No, I mean, they definitely are giving off the kind of impression that they're going to be best of 1 heroes, which is really unfortunate to see. But I'm for Liquid in particular, I'm starting to become a bit concerned that Yakinda is becoming more of a detriment to the team rather than a benefit. And that's not to discourage Yakinda, as a great individual, but he's too unpredictable, I think, to be able to be used in the best way, basically. Like, he'll get a kill, and when he should stop moving and hold for a regression, he will just push in, and then he will die, and he's gotten that opening pick for nothing then at that point. So I think that he's becoming a hindrance, and from what I've been seeing, Ultimate's numbers haven't been what they were when he first joined, and I wouldn't know what is causing that. It might be just a kind of general team regression, which is impacting him negatively, but I think at times he can be a bit too aggressive as well. I think he's been starting to get punished pretty harshly, and so is Yakinda. So I think they really need to bring a lot back from the front of their team.
I think overall, Ultimate is being found out now, and that's the hardest part of it all. But you have your honeymoon period where you're able to just get nutty shots and just hit people really easily. But then when people study your demos and whatnot, they know your habits, they know which areas you want to go to and whatnot, so they know where to avoid and where to point you out and block you out as well. And that's kind of hard to develop in the pro scene when you need so many defaults, so they can't actively predict where you're going to be and out AWP you and out aim you, and where to throw the flashes and the smokes and where you could be holding and whatnot. Also with Yakinda has become a huge hindrance. Remember that meme they pulled up was how G2 wins and how Spirit wins, and they have his did don't kill. Yes, I think that for Liquid is Yakinda alive? Yes, no, you lose round. Yes, you win the round, because half the time that they won rounds and won matches is because Yakinda actually stayed alive after the first opening frag.
Yeah.
I'm going to say half the time he is a big liability, where Liquid are in a lot of 4v5 scenarios because your kid then tried to push into no man's land where he can't be possibly traded. And it's just like, bro, like you're an entry player, but you need to be able to be traded as well. So it has to be a 1-for-1
absolutely.
kind of stuff. And there are some times where he's just like, mate, like you should have not made that play. JKS wasn't there or NAF wasn't there to trade you out. And it puts a lot of pressure on like NAF and JKS and Twists to try and recoup the round because they've got to get a 2K somewhere and stuff like that. And often JKS, like especially in the Ancient where they're 13-0 G2, JKS, Twists, and NAF were able to do that. But the other maps, they weren't able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely difficult having a player on your team that is almost selfish to the point where it's almost like they don't care if they die, right? And they don't look at their mistakes and fix them. They just kind of die and go, oh, this guy knew I was there somehow, or make up some kind of excuse instead of just saying, yeah, I shouldn't have pushed that, guys. That's my bad. And that's a big mindset that you have to have for a team environment is, okay, that was my mistake. I won't do that again. And I feel like that's a difficult mindset for a lot of people. And I would just be worried that Yakinda doesn't have that mindset. I'd be worried that he goes, oh man, how did he know I was there? How did they know I was going to push that? And it's like, come on, man, you've been doing the same thing for 3 years now. Of course you're going to do that again. So, yeah, it's definitely becoming readable from both of those players, I would say.
Do you think, like, you know, in this event in particular, because I gotta go through Mouse, and Mouse, you know, they got through 2-0, then they got 2-0 by Astralis, they got 2-0 by Vitality. Do you think Group A was the weaker group? Because none of Group A won a series in the playoffs. None.
I think looking at Group A, I don't think it was a weak group. I think that they just failed to show up. You know, I mean, you had Mouse. Mouse are a fantastic team now, especially with Shuhei. Yeah, I mean, they do 2-0 phase. Shuhei has been regarded as the next Karrigan of callers. Na'Vi typically has been, I mean, they are the number 1 team in the world. You really expected them to do better than getting 2-0'd by the number 15 team in the world. And so I think there was an upset in what Astralis did, but I also think that the teams that were expected to show up just didn't for some reason. You know, Mao's got 2-0'd by Astralis, then 2-0'd by Vitality, and I mean, what else is there to say other than that wasn't really what you should be expecting from a team like Mao's? You know, it's not what I would expect, especially from Astralis, right? not to disrespect Cadian, but we've never seen them play up until now, and they kind of went ham on Group A, to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say overall, like, you know, Torsi had one of his worst series ever yet. It was under 0.5 rating, which is, like, awful for him. And it wasn't even Zywu who was, like, popping off for Vitality. It was Spinks and Flamesy. Like, both popping off at the same time overall for Mouse. The last but not least on the other end would be, I would say, like, you know, going to semi-finals, Vitality. Oh, that one's going to sting a bit, I'm going to say. That third map against G2 is going to sting for quite a bit. Just... Monacy was out warping everyone on that map and just seemed like an absolute impact player. It's just nothing Vitality's a good do. They couldn't really shut him down. I got to give credit to Jax though, because Vitality, they got 3rd and 4th place with a stand-in of Jax, and Jax created some massive impact on a lot of maps, especially on the entry role as well. Like he got some critical entries on Inferno, I believe, and on Mirage as well. Sorry, they won Inferno, my bad. So I'm thinking about Mirage for some reason. But like Jax, you know, was probably a key indicator of Vitality winning Inferno against G2. Mirage, he was there for a bit, but then it just became the Monacy show. Yeah.
No, it's definitely hard to shut down Monacy. I feel like once he gets going, honestly, just type the GG in the chat. Really, at the end of the day, you know, if he's on one, no one else is going to be more on one than him. And you know, he's, in my opinion, he's the best player in the world at the moment. You know, Zoe is obviously a fantastic player, but I feel like 8 out of 10 times when those matchups come together, like they did in Blast, Monacy just runs away with it. You know, I mean, he was responsible for their 2 map wins, you know, almost single-handedly. You know, Nico definitely showed up on Mirage, but looking at Dust 2, you can definitely see that Monacy was the winning charm there.
Yeah.
So he contributed to that, and he contributed to a 3-0 of Spirit. I mean, that's just incredible to 3-0 Spirit. They're an impeccable team, and Monacy just woke up that day and said, I kind of just want to win, and then won. And that's kind of how it went. And there's not much that they could even do. Donk gave it his all, and unfortunately, it just wasn't enough because I think, Monacy's just almost unstoppable sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to say, Monacy was very, very good overall that series. But I've got to say, in particular, Shiro did a lot of good work of being how resilient he was, given the sitters he missed, and he still came up next round and got a few frags and got Spirits round on the board. Like, a lot of people would probably criticize Shiro in particular. Like, he missed a sitter of an AWP shot and another sitter as well. But the way he rebounded as well to try and get his team back in the game was pretty decent. They weren't going to beat G2, I didn't feel so. But, if Shiro just let it inside his head, this would have been like 13 2s and 13 3s instead of 13 7s and 13 5s that they got in the end. I felt Spirit, this was a big miss for them in particular. The reason why I say it's a big miss is because Donk beat Nico in the duels, okay? And that's usually been their loss conditions because Nico fucking fucks them, basically.
Yeah. No, he doesn't like to lose to Donk, that's for sure. But
yeah,
with Shiro, he is honestly one of the most incredible mental players that I know of, especially in T1 Counter-Strike. I mean, you see teams like Complexity, you have 3 out of 5 players who are just absolute desk smashers. Nico put a hole in his desk. All these people who obviously get very frustrated with the game.
Yeah.
I know I do, but Shiro, there's an interview with him by their team psychologist on YouTube, which going back a long time ago to when you asked about recommendations getting into Team CS, I would definitely say watch that because he talks about his mindset and his attitude when it comes to the game, and how if you lose, there's a reason you lost. Make sure you don't be that reason again, basically. And he's just an insanely strong mental individual. So I think he's going to always be a reliable player where Spirit is able to rely on him to at least, maybe not put up the numbers, but he's not going to fail to put up the numbers and be angry about it, right? He'll go back and go, okay, I need to do better. And I think that's a huge mindset for him. I think that's contributed to him bouncing back round after round to be able to go no kills and then a double or a triple kill the next round and win them the round. Yeah. Because he resets very quickly.
Also got to say overall, what other thing mentions as well, Snacks broke the streak. Okay, Snacks went positive. And on Anubis, he got a 3K entry to, I think that broke the streak. That was the streak break, was a 3K entry because he only had 7 deaths. And that was quite an entry in the MAC 10. I actually was surprised when he got the third kill. I'm like, how the fuck did he get a 3K on the MAC 10 entry? The other one as well, I didn't think Spirit going to beat this. I mean, Chopper was getting caught out by Monacy. Monacy was just deleting people by ease. This was his best series yet, that BO5. He was the star player across every single map. Hunter, who had a very great supporting role as well, was Malbs. It's just G2 actually had a really good team-based performance. It wasn't just 4-star players. It was actually a team-based performance. And this is the crazy part because everyone on G2, every single time we see focus on the IGL. I'm just going to say this straight up. It's not the IGL, okay? You don't need a fragging IGL on this team. The IGL is the border collie, okay? And the 4-star players are sheep. You just need to get them to go one direction, okay? That's all you have to do on this team. And a lot of people are going like, they need this and they need that. It's like, he's not in a team like Mouse or Astralis or FaZe where the teamwork makes the dream work sort of thing. It's just leading those 4 players to just work and gel with each other, and that is it. Because they've got enough firepower to overwhelm a lot of teams. And I hate the over-focus on Hooksy and Snacks, okay? I hate the over-focus on these guys because it's just like, Snacks is not a win condition. Hooksy was never a win condition. In fact, people had an absolute mind meltdown when Richard Lewis tweeted out that Hooksy wasn't a factor. Hooksy's never been a factor. Snacks has never been a factor in this G2 roster. And I hate people be like, oh, Hooksy only got this. Like, who cares about Hooksy? He just has to get these sheep to just go kill, and that's it. It frustrates me to no end. Every time there's analysis on Snacks and Hooksy, I'm just like, bro, just stop. You don't know how G2 works.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the unfortunate thing about a super team is it's hard to find an IGL who can kind of manage all of that star power because, you know, if you have four of the best players in the world.
Think about Nico.
Yeah.
Carrigan, couldn't handle him. Alexi B, couldn't handle him.
Yeah. No, it's very difficult to have four players who are just unbelievably good individually and then bring them together and go, okay, guys, now I know you're all better than me, but you should listen to me. Right? It's very difficult to do that. But, you know, I personally think that Hooksy was bringing a more concise structure to the team, and I think that he would have been better than Snacks, purely because I think Snacks, I just feel like he doesn't have the right mindset in terms of the way I think if you watch them move around the map, it's not. There's times where it almost doesn't really look cohesive. So I would be a bit worried if I was on that team that Snacks at times almost doesn't have faith in his own calling, which I'm not saying that is true, of course, but that's just something that would concern me, you know, because one thing you need from an IGL is confidence. Even if they're wrong, they need to be wrong confidently. Right? So if you make a call and it's wrong, you go, my bad, guys, call was wrong. All right, next round.
Yeah.
Right, so you don't want an IGL that's going to sit there and and question their own call before it's even made because they don't want them to get it wrong. Because then they're definitely going to get it wrong, and then that's a problem.
Yeah, because there's a lot of mid-round calling from Nico as well. Like should mention that as well. Like a lot of mid-round calling from Nico because you could see on his webcam that he was very, very vocal. You could see his mouth move quite a lot during the mid-round in particular. I guess I probably disagree with that particularly with that point because I feel like Snacks is probably confident given the fact he won a major with Virtus Pro.
Of course, yeah.
Just a Virtus Pro fan here, okay? Because it's Virtus Pro and Co.
That's fair enough.
But I feel like because Taz has mentioned this quite a while, they don't talk too much about strategy in timeouts. This is a bit of a meme that Taz, threatens to call a timeout to like psychologically tell them to calm down. But it was mentioned that as well. One of the times they clued in on it was like Taz telling everyone to calm down and take a deep breath in and out. So I'm not terribly too sure about that one. Maybe it's obviously the ego issue and trying to put them all into a box basically. Also at the same time, you've got to consider as well with Nico is that G2 CEO basically announced that Nico's probably leaving. So where do you think this one's going to go with Nico leaving? Do you think they're going to make more changes? I personally think they're going to take out Hunter and try to pick up a few other riflers and just make a team of it, in my opinion. I don't know which riflers, but there's a lot of rifles in that tier 2 scene that you can just pick up. Like you got Kisioke in particular. That's one of tier 2 rifles that everyone's after. But you got like Resalt as well from Aurora. And you've got, like I say, with riflers, there's a lot of rifles in the market that just G2 can just give the briefcase and pick 2 of them up.
Yeah, I think the thing that G2 is going to run into, they're going to run into a few chemistry problems, I think, if Nico does depart for Falcons, which Definitely. Is what I've heard as well. Because I think the relationship between Monacy and Nico is absolutely a contributing factor in Monacy's individual performance, and I think probably Nico's as well. So, it's almost like you're ripping apart what is essentially an extremely well-founded friendship and partnership in game, and I'm sure out of game as well. And I think ripping that apart is going to be hugely detrimental. So
100%.
I think unless Nico is getting offered some unfathomable amount of money, I don't think he will leave G2 simply because he has a very good chemistry with Monacy. And he's also spoken previously about how he's always wanted to play on a team with his cousin. So I think that those two reasons, plus the fact that they've been winning, are pretty good reasons for him not to leave. But if he does leave, I think I do agree that they'll probably try and do something about Hunter as well.
Uh-huh.
And I think Malbs will pick up a lot of Nico's positions. He'll take on those star rifle roles.
Uh-huh.
And then at that point, they really just need a really solid big site anchor.
Uh-huh.
And then they need a small site rotator to facilitate that and have the confidence to take the other side of the map away from Malbs, basically.
Do you have any players in particular that you take a look at in particular? Because I named a few tier 2 players, but is there any other players that you would think of as well?
I couldn't think of any off the top of my head, but I do know Result is he's very good. When he was in Australia, actually, I got into a Face-It match with him once. That was pretty entertaining, but he was insane. But he is a good option. If I was going to have a quick look at some teams,
don't worry too much about it. It's just there's so many of them, to be honest. I'm going to be completely honest with you.
Yeah. No, I think Senegal has had some very good players recently. I think they've been showing up.
Jota, 100%.
Yeah, and 3D Max, I think it was Exercise on 3D Max has also been putting in some good,
he's improved
impact on his role.
He's improved immensely since I watched him versus Advance, where he was just like a fucking paperweight, to be honest. Like, seriously, he was just utter uselessness. But then when I saw him again start playing against Senegal and Anubis, holy crap, like that B site was just his, mate. Like, he couldn't get him off of it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely what I think G2 is going to need, is a really strong site anchor. That's what they lost when they got rid of JKS. That's why they failed so bad.
Could they get Sush from Heroic, who's having a great time in particular? Like, he's a good anchor. Used to be world class.
I'm sure he would do well, but I think it would come down to a chemistry thing. You got to remember that if a player doesn't get along with their site partner, it is so difficult to hold that site. So at the end of the day, from what I've heard, there are times where the players will make a decision on whether or not someone stays in the team. I have heard that the reason JKS was removed from G2 was because Hunter didn't really like the fact that he had poor comms in terms of how often he actually spoke. He's a very quiet individual. And so what I have heard is that Hunter basically complained and was like, you need to get rid of JKS or I'm going to leave, kind of thing. And so unfortunately they had to get rid of JKS. And at the end of the day, if you run into a similar problem trying to replace Nico and Hunter, if they both go, that could take forever. You could be in a state of just constantly trying to find new players. So it can be very difficult. Yeah.
You know who they could get back in? Get Pasha and Bialy to unretire. Okay.
Oh man, I mean that would be pretty golden. Let's be honest.
Anyway, to go to the next tournament, because you did mention them. You did mention Falcons, and they did participate in this tournament. Because I think Blast Premier World Final, I think we discussed that one to death.
Oh, yeah. Falcons are they are an interesting roster to look at.
You know what the worst part? I spelled Thunderpick wrong, I think. No, I got it right. Okay, never mind. I saw the R now. I was just keep wondering, like, did I spell Thunder wrong? Okay, let's talk about the first one, Falcons.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna put a hot take here. Okay, maybe probably very cold take at this point. Fuck me, this team is fucking useless and should be imploded. Like, honestly, the quality of players in this team, and they are placing last and getting banged out by tier 2 teams, is horrific. Okay, they shouldn't be getting bounced out by these tier 2 teams. They got beaten in Katowice without playing playoffs. They got to be fair, they got bounced out by Eternal Fire. But anyway, they have to be getting the playoffs. Like, they can't be losing these tier 2 events. And whoever's managing Team Falcons should never be hired as a manager for any tier 2 team, because it's just like the meme, this is a conservative meme, okay? And I make a joke, how do you make a large business? How do you make a medium-sized business? You buy a large one and shrink it. That's what it is basically with Falcons that manager's done.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Falcons is what G2 could have been. In the way that they have so much money and they put it all into these players. It's like what I was telling you with the chemistry, right? It just isn't there, I don't think. And Simple was never going to fix that. Simple would probably make it worse, actually. You know, he's a very vocal person. He's very critical, and he's not really afraid to just say, "Hey, man, that was really shit," basically to your face. And he's not very nice about it. We'll put it that way.
Yep.
So I think if Falcons really want to make dramatic change, I think if Simple isn't able to work for them, Sampaio was working.
Yep, I don't get
well enough. I think Sampaio was working well enough for what they wanted.
Yep. As I said, I
really
don't understand that change. I really don't understand that Sampaio change. Anyways, continue.
Yeah. I think they just had the money and went, hey, Simple's pretty well known. Let's try and get him in. And yeah, I mean, clearly it's not working, but they're going to need to make some seriously drastic changes to be. If they don't make it through the RMR, I wouldn't be surprised to see at least 3 players from this Falcons roster gone immediately after.
Oh, like I say, overall, like they're not going to make the major. Let's just put it straight up. They're not one of those teams that would make the major. They're going to go out and probably 16th. They're going to go 0-3 or maybe 1-3, and they're going to have to replace Sorta Core because you can't have Magic as a star player. You can't have Dupree in the lurk roles, getting top frags and being your most impactful member of the team. I mean, the manager position, as I said before, you subbed out your best player in Sampaio, so team you could build your team around for Simple, who hasn't played CS2 LAN in forever. You're making a gamble on the wrong position. If you replace Magix or Dupree with someone else, I'd be fine. Or even Madden with someone else, I'd be fine because he's not your weak condition. Sampaio was your weak condition, and you just subbed it out, and you guys got worse because, yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I personally don't think Dupree is an issue on the team. I think he's a very good, consistent rifler, but yeah, Magisk and Madden, I think they could comfortably get maybe put into a retirement home at this point. Magisk especially. I mean, he's not a horrible player, but he's just. I think he lacks the structure that Australis had, and that was where he thrived. Was in that structured environment, and I don't think Falcons has that structure. I don't think that what the coach is trying to make happen is going to work at this point. And I don't think Snappy is able to kind of keep everything contained, if that makes sense. You know, there's too many leaks in the team, too many small mistakes that are going to just cost you the round. And so I think they need some pretty major change.
Yeah, we go. You want to go group by group, or you want to go by team in the rankings?
I don't mind. We can do whatever you want.
Okay, let's do group by group, because next one is Virtus Pro. Now, this is another, basically, just copy and paste and put, remove Falcons, put Virtus Pro. You are the number 8 team, and you are losing to Freddy, Max, and OG. So mainly OG. Okay, they lost to OG twice in 2 BO3s.
Yeah.
Like, you bought an electronic in this team to fix the team, and it got worse. Maybe Mia wasn't as big as a problem as he was. I'm just going to say, this is the reason why I didn't celebrate Electronic being transferred to Virtus Pro. He's made every team he goes into worse. Like, Cloud9 went worse under his stuff and whatnot as well. I'm going to say Electronic isn't as good as everyone thinks he is, okay? Like, he may have had some good stints at Na'Vi, but every time he goes to a new team, that team overall goes down. I think this is an Electronic problem, and they might want to replace him and try to get something else. They also lost Dustdown, their coach, who was really, really good and got Pashinov show. I know he's a veteran player in the Russian scene, but it hasn't helped their team either. Virtus Pro can't be losing these tournaments. Like, they should be at least getting to playoffs at least, and the fact that they came third is just bad, just horrible.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think Electronic might be a similar situation to Magisk, where he just thrived in the structure of the team. You know, obviously different structures, Na'Vi and Australis, but that structure was clearly working for him. And so he's trying to replicate that success somewhere else, and I just don't think he's going to find it at this point. He needs to find a team that is just similar to what Na'Vi was, and that is not Virtus Pro, that's for sure. Yeah, I think that the way that they play it's so much more passive than what Na'Vi was. Na'Vi was so in your face, just destroying you every time, and Virtus Pro was so almost scared in some matches, I feel like, which is a shame because I think they have good individuals, but
Hmm.
I just don't think that the chemistry is there. Like, it's not working for them as an overall.
Because I hear rumors as well that James is going to be like, probably replace a particular. I don't think it's an IGL issue. Okay, I think the pickups that they have have just been poor pickups. It hasn't
Yeah,
made their team a lot better. And if they do like wipe the core, get rid of James, Norbert, and Fame, I think they're just setting themselves back at least 6 to 12 months.
yeah, no, definitely. I don't think it's an IGL issue either. I mean, it would be an IGL issue in the way of the IGL doesn't work for the players,
Yep.
and the players don't work for the IGL. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the IGL is bad. It just means that there's a compatibility issue, and
Mm.
you know, you need to. You can either choose to keep your good players or your good IGL. If they're not working together, you got to pick one.
Mm.
And I think that picking a good IGL is probably one of the more important things you can do.
Yep. I'd say overall
Yeah.
Virtus Pro, probably a couple of changes. Like I say, they're not bad players in any of these rosters that I've criticized today. So criticized Falcons. I went hard at a few players in particular for Virtus Pro Falcons. They're not bad players. I mean, like Dupree, like he was impressive on Ancient when Falcons in ESL Katowice. He was very impressive, and I thought he played extremely well. And let's get to the next one, OG. OG made it to one of the big tier 2 tournaments, land finals. Okay.
Yeah.
They came, I believe, third in the end. But I gotta say,
I think
this
it
is
was. I think it was third.
no,
Yeah.
no, it was fourth. It was fourth. They lost to Freddie Max
Oh,
in
was
the
it?
end.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say they're cooking. Okay, I question the decision to bring in Fiku as their main player to build around because I'm like Fiku's not good enough. But
Yeah.
OG they took down Big, and that's a massive scout. Obviously, I didn't say big scout because it would be another pun. But
Yeah.
Big's a gatekeeper of that tier 1, tier 2 scene where, like, if you can beat Big, you can start making deep runs to these playoffs. And I think OG have got something cooking here. Now,
Yeah. Yeah.
I gotta say, overall, I don't think OG have the majors to look forward to, or do they? Because I think they didn't make it in the end. No, they didn't make it in the end. So they don't have that to look
Mhm.
forward to. But I gotta say, I think OG is gonna be one to watch out for in the future. I'm gonna say, like, of course they come fourth here, but they beat Big in a BO3. I know it's an online BO3, but this could be something greater coming in here from OG, I would say. They've got some pretty decent
Yeah.
pieces as well. They've got Moto, they got Mikey, they picked up Buzz as well, and Buzz did pretty good for Astralis. They picked up Krisen as well, they're picking up some tier 2 Danes. I think OG is going to be the one to watch out for next tournament cycle and the major cycle as well. However, that's going to be a bit of a downside because next year is that every TO is going to be trying to compete for these tier 1 teams, and these tier 2 teams will be left out in the dark and will just be brought in at the last second. So I'm not sure if
Mhm.
that's going to impact OG, but OG is a team I'd look for in the next year because if they get it right, they could start really chomping at the bit in that tier 1.5 space, as you call it. They can start chomping at the bit
Yeah.
there. I think it's one team to watch
Yeah.
out for.
No, I can definitely agree with that. I think that Buzz, like you said, definitely a big, good pickup. I've heard good things about Fiku,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I think the fact that they're able to show that they can be competitive is big.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing that I would say about OG is I feel like they may become an academy-esque type of team
Yeah.
where they will have these really good players and they will basically give them a platform to be picked up from,
Mm-hmm.
which isn't a bad thing, obviously, because these players are getting more exposure, but the team itself will struggle because of that.
Yep.
That's why you don't see academy teams usually in the top 50
Mm-hmm.
because all their good players are picked up and then they kind of drop a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think that that's kind of where OG might end up in the new year. But yeah, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm sure they're going to make quite a bit of money out of that if that's the way that they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to be a terrible idea.
Yep. Now let's talk about the top team, Freddie Max overall. And I think Freddie Max had a very good tournament, finished third place in the end. Funnily enough, Group A was third and fourth. They beat Bestia 2-1, pretty decent. I mean, they lost to the eventual winners, I believe, as well, Mongos. I think this
Yeah.
Freddie Max team, especially with ESL Pro League and how well they played, I think this Freddie Max team showing some a lot of consistency where they are the top dogs of this tier 2 scene. The biggest worry I've got in particular is that Lucky has been around the scene for a long time, in particular. Who are they going to replace Lucky with? Because obviously Lucky was back when G2 and Envious and stuff like that existed. He's been around for a long
Yeah.
time. they're going to come to a spot where they're going to have to give him up. But fortunately for 3D Max, it's not like they're losing an IGL. They're not losing an AWPer. So I'm worried about Lucky going out of the team. Will it dismantle 3D Max? Because they've got a good thing cooking. They've got a very, very good thing cooking. If he ever calls time, that is. And they've still got probably 1 or 2 years of him. But I think this 3D Max team is peaking. But how high is that peak going to be? Because Exercise and Gravity are playing very well now. I remember when they were first introduced in various teams and they, Exercise a bit of a paperweight. Gravity wasn't that great either. But now they're looking a lot better. ESL Pro League showed how good Gravity and Exercise were as well.
Yeah, no, I think 3D Max is showing some good signs for like French Counter-Strike. A lot of people like to make fun of French people, and it is a good punchline. It always hits, but you can't deny the fact that they used to be some of the kings of Counter-Strike. You had D2,
Sharks.
Envious, Titan. These LDLC, these teams that everyone knows. Pretty much everyone will know them. 3 of those 4 teams aren't even around anymore. And yet you have a Titan Holo, an LDLC Holo are worth more than some people's car. So, I think that having a full French roster is really, really good. I think that, I personally support teams that are purely from one country. I think it helps in a lot of ways. Whether or not they will have access to a French player who can replace someone like Lucky, that is a bit of a worry. But I'm sure that player exists, but how difficult they are to find is going to obviously be up to what they're looking for at the end of the day. So I do see this team 3D Max making good progress and still having somewhere to be in the next 6 to 12 months. But it'll just be a worry about replacing those missing players if that does come to fruition.
I'd say overall, 3D Max have really revolutionized their Anubis. Anubis overall, once they pick it, is a very, very strong map pick. It was very scary at ESL Pro League, and it was also very scary at Thunderpick as well. They even got it as a decider against Virtus Pro, which was not needed in the end. But, something scary in general where they can get that Anubis to a decider, and there's basically a pseudo second map pick for them. We'll head on over to Group B. 9Z, didn't really expect them to do too much. I feel like 9Z, they got the jump in the ESL Pro League where not many teams had studied them, as well as IM Dallas. And now a lot of teams have studied them, and they're being found out. That's pretty much it, because they just bombed out this tournament.
Yeah, 9Z is a bit of an unfortunate one, but I think I can agree with what you said there,
Yep. Cloud9, okay. With 9Z, they've got some great players. They've got Martinez and I forget the other guy. I have his name at the back of my head, but I always forget his name's Hoso Peak, that's right. Martinez, Buddha as well. He can be good at times as well as ZGT. They have some great players and all. They've just got to evolve. It's always where these young teams meet this hurdle where they win a lot, go up, but they meet the hurdle where they're getting studied and they've got to adjust and make different defaults so they're not predictable, basically. And that's where 9C is at the moment. They've got that tournament where they've hit that wall now and they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and adjust. Because their games are pretty close against Fnatic and Cloud9. But it's just you're still out. Because they had a round difference of -8. And they lost both series. And that's, a couple of rounds each way. Cloud9.
Yeah.
I'd say overall they got won by Mongols. They beat 9Z and lost a close one against Fnatic. I'd say over for Cloud9 overall, given the players they have, they've got Heavy God, Icy, Axel, Enters, and Boomage, this team needs to be performing a lot better. This Cloud9 roster should be at least getting to the play-ins or potentially to the LAN finals. And it's a bit of an underperformance from them. I'm not going to be so harsh on them, given that, they're still building that team, compared to Virtus Pro and Falcons, who've had an established team for quite a bit. But Cloud9, they need to be performing above. They're nowhere near the ceiling.
Yeah. No, I think that, for me personally, I think Cloud9 as an organization is really...
terrible. Really
fumbled. I guess you could say that, but they've just really fumbled by moving themselves away from the North American scene. I'm sure that they're going to, in the long term, have more success in terms of wins with a European team. A CIS team, I guess, at the end of the day, because these are almost all Russians. Cloud9 was such an integral part of North American Counter-Strike, and you've taken them out to facilitate a Russian team. There's not already enough full Russian teams out there. right? I mean,
There's too many good Russian
probably,
AWPers, mate. Like, have you tried to get into tier 1 Russian team or even a tier 2 Russian team? Like, the AWPers in there are crazy good.
mate, it's unreal. I think that all Russians do is just play Counter-Strike. They don't even go to school. I mean, look at Donk, man. This guy is a freak. He doesn't even look like he eats. He looks like he just exists to play Counter-Strike. And it's unreal. And I think that, obviously we want to have these players represented because they're insanely good. But come on, you didn't have to sacrifice a North American roster just to do that.
I'd say overall,
yeah.
I don't think Cloud9's bad from picking up a good Russian roster, and Gambit in particular. I think it's their badness comes from the management. I mean, they let Shiro walk to Spirit, okay? They started messing with the roster. They picked up Buster from Virtus.pro, who was in through a whole goddamn slump, and then put them in their team. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, what are you actually doing? It's like, there are so many other riflers than Buster you could have picked up for a fairly decent price that were Russian. And then they let Shiro walk to Spirit because Nafani got kicked out. And I reckon that's linked. A lot of people try to say it's not linked. I reckon that was linked because as soon as Nafani got kicked out, Shiro's like, the moment I play like shit, I'm going to get kicked out too. So he walked to Spirit. And that Cloud9 roster fell apart. That's pretty much it. Now you got this roster. This roster overall needs a bit of time. I'm not going to say, Cloud9's management of CS rosters in general has been pretty diabolic. Like, any change that they've made to a roster has actively made it worse. I feel like they have a reverse Midas touch.
Yeah, no, they really need... I think a huge problem in Counter-Strike and it's just they don't let their players actually develop. Like, they will pick up a player for 2 months and go, yeah, he's underperforming, and then just find someone else, right? Everyone is always looking for the next Donk, the next Monacy, and you're just not going to find them. Like, they are diamonds in the rough. They are the needle in the haystack, right? You need to give your players an opportunity to actually develop. If you have someone who has the fundamentals you're looking for, you need to give them a good chance to show themselves and settle in. I mean, if you move to a new team, you're not going to instantly know everyone and get the strats and be comfortable in 2 months. That can take 6 months, right? There's some players who have been in teams for like years and years, right? Like Rain on FaZe, for example, he's coming up on 9 years in that team. That is unbelievable. And then you have these other players who are in a team for a month, 2 months.
Yeah.
And they just get let go because they don't give them the chance to develop,
Talking about teams doing like that, like Fnatic did to Dexter, and I feel that was a bit of a one in particular when you're talking about that. Talking about Fnatic. I can say Fnatic did very good in this tournament, and they are very unlucky they drew Heroic. Okay, that's pretty much it. You look at what Fnatic have. Okay, Fnatic have 3 or 2 very veteran players in Body and Crims, and they got Nork as well. They picked up Nork from Bleed. They also got Mattis as well. One of the even before I get it wrong, he's from Czech, no, he's from Slovakia. Very, very good. They got BlameF as well, and I feel like there's a bit of a downgrade for BlameF, but Fnatic getting BlameF is huge. They've got a great fragger as well, who can secondary call if needed. And I feel like Fnatic, they're getting places now. I think the downside was they got 2-0'd by Heroic. It sucks. Like, you want to be more competitive against Heroic. I suppose 13-10 losses on both map is competitive, but they want to try to get a map on there in the end. They want to get over the hurdle. Fnatic, they're getting closer. Maybe you can drop one of your veteran players, but do you drop Crims or Body? Like, at the time it's an IGL versus your player's been with you forever and has still performing quite well. Nah, you don't drop any of these players. I think you just give them a bit more to develop. Fnatic will go up slightly. I don't see Fnatic ceiling hitting tier 1 though, okay? I need to see a bit more from Matters in particular, to see if because he's going to be the star player with Nork as well. Nork showing signs. Once Nork gels in and Mattis gels in, we're going to see how far the ceiling's going to go. At the moment, it's not going to be above tier 1. Not going to be at tier 1.
Yeah. No, I think I can agree with that. I think this is a good example of a team that does just need that time to develop. But I think I agree that they won't quite be competitive with tier 1, but I think they'll be consistently at the top of tier 2. But I don't think they'll be able to make that extra step up.
Now let's talk about someone in particular, next team. They're winners of the entire Thunderpick. Mongos.
Yep.
Well, you can't really say anything because they won the entire competition. They did incredibly well. That team, okay, this is a yellow situation again, okay? The top ranked team at this tournament was number 11, which was heroic, okay? Like, that was, so no, Virtus Pro at 8. Okay, they didn't verse Virtus Pro, but Virtus Pro would probably knock them out because Mongos' bane is Virtus Pro. Like I said, there's not really enough higher tier teams to really rate Mongos, in particular at number 5. But Mongos won this tournament, and they did a good job at winning this tournament, and they deserved it. Okay, they won this tournament very dominantly. They took down Heroic. That's a big pick. Like, if you're saying that they're not a top 10 team, there's your answer. They took down Heroic. That's number 11, so they're definitely above them. And Virtus Pro didn't even make it the distance, so they're definitely above a lot of teams in particular. So Mongos are definitely in the top 10. Top 5, no, they're not. And until they start beating a Spirit, a G2, or FaZe, or one of those top 8 teams consistently, I don't rate them there. But this is a step in the right direction. Everyone was just on point in that team. 9-10. I always forget that player's name that time. 9-10, Techno, Sensu, Zenio, Blitz. I still can't believe this team is better than the previous Mongos roster that had Score and a lot of mechanically oriented players as well as Annihilation as well. I cannot believe this team is better than that. I still can't believe it to this day. A bunch of youngsters have more composure than the most experienced players in the Mongolian region is just nuts to me. And I gotta say, Mongos, Mara, hats off to you guys. You guys have picked up some amazing players. Sensu is an absolute god. Like, you know, godly pickup from NKT, especially after his little scandal with the skins and whatnot. That came out to be really, really bad for him. But he's definitely rejuvenated, replayed himself. This Mongos team is going to cause terror in the Asia RMR and going to cause terror in the Major and probably terror in the Legend stage as well. So it's definitely a team to watch out for. I did see some goodbyes to Mara. Hopefully they're not losing him as a coach because that's going to sting quite a bit. But overall, this Mongos roster, you know, they're top 5 according to they're top 10, top 5, whoever you pick. But they can get higher. They can achieve. They can break into tier 1. I reckon they're breaking down that wall.
No, definitely. I don't think I could agree more. I mean, I think that this Mongols roster is probably as close to you know, the old Astralis as we're going to get from a team nowadays. You know, none of these players are what I would consider, you know, unbelievable players for a tier 1
star players.
Team. Exactly, but they're still making these runs because they just have such a good, you know, team chemistry. You know, their structure is working, and it's another example of those teams I was saying where speaking the same language and it's your native language can be absolutely huge. You know, you have these teams that above them. I don't think there's a single team above them that all speak the same language. You know, except for maybe Spirit, depending on you know.
It have to be Spirit. It has to be Spirit.
Yeah. So. Spirit is probably the only one. Oh, and Eternal Fire. Looking here, actually. So those are probably the only 2 teams that I would consider to be better than the Mongols that all actually speak the same language fluently. You know, it's impressive all these other teams are able to achieve that, but I think that Heroic can be, with time and experience, can be a top 5 team. I think they will be able to consistently compete with and beat these top 10 teams on just a consistent level. You know, give it a year, they might even be top 5 consistently. And that would be incredible, especially for the Mongolian region. I mean, it's unbelievable that they have even been able to facilitate a team that's able to get to the level they are, I think. So I think that these guys should be very proud of themselves and the achievements that they've made. It's absolutely incredible.
I do worry about the Mongolian scene, though, in particular, because I have a person who reports me all the Mongolian team changes and whatnot. There's a lot of drama sparking up on the lower teams, like not Chinggis or anything like that, or Atox is one of them, actually. There's a lot of drama sparking up with Atox where players have egos and whatnot in particular. And it's like really flowing down to the lower teams in the scene. And I'm worried about that because you've got good teams, like Atox just has imploded, most likely, I'm going to say. You got Eruption with some good youngsters, and as well as Chinggis as well. And I'm getting really worried about it because, like, Atox was going to be my sleeper team to potentially make the RMR. They choked, and basically there was bad internal chemistry and whatnot, which is not good. And I'm extremely worried that that's going to spread into other teams as well. And it's going to be like, where's the you know, their foundations under Mongols, who's going to be that second team up. And it's starting to look like they're going to be hopefully not undone by like petty drama and whatnot in the scene. I'm actually quite worried about that because I haven't really disclosed it to this guy in particular, but it just feels a lot of really petty dramas, like getting rid of a lot of good teams. Like, I mean, Atox had like Zesta in it as well at one point, and they got rid of Zesta, and then Annihilation had issues, and it was just like, guys, like, focus on the scene overall. Like, all this negativity and drama and beefing with players is not helping your scene overall. You don't become a Mongoose by shitting on everyone else within your scene.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's definitely a problem with those, substantially lower level teams. You have the same thing here in OCE where you have these teams that they think that they're just better than everyone around them. They think that they're the best player on the server every time, which, I think it's good to have the mentality of like, oh, I'm better than this guy when you make a peak, for example, right? You don't want to peak someone and be scared because then you probably won't get the kill. But if you go, I'm going to shit on this guy, and then you peak, you'll probably get the kill because you have the confidence. But overconfidence is a massive, massive problem. And I can definitely see that being the downfall of a lot of teams, like globally even, not just looking at one scene in particular, but just all over the place. I can see a team or individual players who think that they don't have to respect someone else or listen to them just because they think they're better, causing huge problems for more than just their team. Like, if they go somewhere else, they're going to bring the same problem with them, and then no one's going to want to pick them up. So I think there needs to be a level of humility and humbleness to every player.
And professionalism as well. Like, in particular, like, I'm really sad to see like Annihilation and not Nine, sorry, I think it was Annihilation was one of them. I'm not sure about the others, but I'll ask him about it. But like, seeing some of these players are just unprofessional, and it's just like, come on, guys, like, Mongols have really lit a torch for your seed. Someone trying to build a second team behind it, okay? Now let's get into Group C. Group C, you have Legacy. Jeez, and this is another story of 9Z. They just can't get over the hump. Legacy was so good in Katowice. They were competitive against a lot of teams. Yeah, they got it. They went out early, but no one expects Legacy to do anything. Like, no one expects Legacy to make big runs, but they are challenging all of these tier 2 teams. I'm just disappointed to see Legacy like this. That Demal was starting to rise up in form, and to see them go out 0-2 is pretty dismal. But overall, Legacy, team to watch out for the Brazilian scene. I love it that a lot of these Brazilian teams now are not trying to replicate SK Gaming, okay? They're not being like, let's get Fallen, let's get Coldzera. They're SK Gaming, they're going to make us great again. Thank fuck that they've learned this lesson, because Furia still haven't learnt it!
Yeah, no, I think Fallen's definitely an overrated IGL AWP. I think he's great, but let's be honest, he's not that great anymore.
Yeah, but anyways,
I think that
let's move on. I want to move on for that because we're going to go into Furia territory, but let's talk about Legacy. Okay, let's talk about them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's great that teams like Legacy are developing new South American talent, because back when Luminosity was big, everyone thought South America was going to be the next place for Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
And I feel like there just hasn't been as much as you would expect coming out of that area since then. And I think it's great that we're seeing teams like 9Z and Legacy, I can't think of one, MIBR, being able to make it out of just being in South America and contest with European teams, because everyone knows European teams are the best in the world. And if you're able to get out of South America and go overseas and then still be competitive, I think that is, that's hugely impressive.
Yep.
Because the level of play can be considerably different. So, I think it's a really good sign that teams like 9Z and Legacy are around.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing them, just keep developing and getting more experience. And I think they'll end up being similar to Fnatic or OG in the way where you just give them time and they will start getting better and better.
Also, they've got a good balance on the team as well. They got Nekaz and a few others that have been around the scene for a while, so really guiding these youngsters as well. And it's also spare parts in the Brazilian team. They've actually made a pretty decent team, even though they went 0-2 here. But I was just going to say, it's really disappointing because I feel like Legacy have so much more than 0-2 in Thunderpick. I know they've got a tough ask with Imperial and Heroic. Imperial are much better, much progressed Brazilian team. But they got a map of Heroic and they got a map of Imperial. That's some starter. But you really just wanted to win a series. We can go on to the next one, which is NIP. And just NIP is a bit of a car wreck.
Yeah, I think Nip is, Nip is one of those teams where I don't think time's going to help them too much, to be totally honest.
They kept switching out parts. That's the worst thing about Nip is they keep making roster changes after roster changes. Their management is not that great. They need stability. Like, they really, really need stability. They got a good coach. They got Wrinkle. Wrinkle's a miracle that they got him because so many other teams are looking for a very good AWPer like Wrinkle, and they picked up Wrinkle. That's like literally a gift because their team doesn't deserve Wrinkle, if I'm going to be completely honest. Like, I'm surprised that Wrinkle fell to Nip, okay? Out of all teams. That's a God-given blessing, okay?
Well, I guess it's just that that CSGO money is able to keep him there. But I think that they really need to just almost give it like a hard reset, where they need to just get these 3 players for their core in Rez, Maxter, and Wrinkle, and just say, all right, everyone else, go away for a while, and then spend a good amount of time looking for 2 replacement players who will be able to, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Complement the 3 you already have.
Yep. I'd say overall, I'd say, like, it'd be Rez, Isaac, and Wrinkle potentially as well. If you want to put the IGL and you put Mistem in as well, but I think Mistem's been thrown at deep end. I reckon Rez, Isaac, and Wrinkle. Isaac did pretty well at Game of Legion. Like, he did pretty well at there as well. So it could be him. Nip, I'm going to say, you look at the round differential between Nip and Legacy, okay? Nip, negative 26. They got battered and bruised by both Heroic and Imperial. Okay? Like, I feel like if they versed Legacy in the BO3, Legacy would leapfrog them. That would be third instead. I think Legacy would actually win that BO3.
I think that's possible, yeah.
Yep. And so I can't believe Imperial lost to them initially. That's good. At least Imperial got that back. Talking about Imperial, though, this is a roster that's more further down the line compared to where Legacy is. I mean, they've got Phelps and Vinny, obviously a bit of SK Gaming, but it's just a bit more than SK Gaming now. Like, Phelps has gone beyond, hey, I'm SK Gaming, I'm really, really good, into building a team with Vinny, with Decency, with No Way, and Try as well. Like, Try has been around quite a bit as well. I think Imperial, they're just basically Legacy, but further down the line, you can see Legacy be like this for probably about 6 months or a year. And also as well, Imperial, well, you got a map of the Mongols, okay? You're not winning, okay? Like that's same as for the Fnatic situation. You drew a team that's going to the dessert that's going to be in that LAN final, okay? Like, that's one of the teams that's going to be there. And they got a map off them, and I think Imperial definitely have improved, and we should watch out for them in America's RMR if they're in there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think they're definitely a good sign for South American Counter-Strike being able to make that step up that I was talking about before, Like you were saying, they are just what Legacy will become, I think.
Yeah. Next up, we've got a Heroic. Well, Heroic, everyone expects them to make LAN finals. That's pretty much it. They lost to Mongols.
Yeah, I think they're just a very solid, safe pick to be good, I think. I think that's what Heroic is at the moment. And I think that they're almost content with that. It feels like, I've never really seen them make any kind of drastic decisions that would show that they want to change much of what's happening. I think they're just going to be focusing on improving.
All their changes is because of Astralis. Okay, let's put it that way. Okay, let's get the cat out of the bag. Astralis has been screwing with Heroic for a very long time, and Heroic are surprisingly doing very well, despite the fact that the rug keeps getting pulled out from under them by Astralis over and over and over again. I guess overall, Kixon's a great IGL. Like, Kixon's a magical IGL. Next Karrigan, I'm gonna say, even though he's not Danish. Because he pops these out of the box strategies that just fool teams. He did this in Apex as well, where like he just pulls these out of the box strategies and like teams aren't prepared for this. They're like, what the? Like they can't believe it's happened to them. Overall, Heroic should have really won this event. I feel they've also Heroic would make a great pick for social media manager with Sneaky Beaky at the helm, who's a very good friend of mine. He's a funny as hell social media manager, and he runs the Heroic co-stream as well. He's really, really awesome as well. Even though probably like, Josh, you annoy me at times while you're trolling, I'm just like, mate, you're a great character, and I enjoy trolling with you as well, because I made a joke as well that, if Heroic lose to Fnatic, sorry, big Fnatic, I'm like, if Heroic lose a map to Fnatic, do they give a contract to Blame F?
Yeah. No, I think Heroic is. I think Heroic's going to just, with some time, I think that they'll show that they're competitive in the top 10, but I don't see them being much better than where they are now, to be honest. Not because they're bad, but I think it's just because everyone else is better, really, to be honest.
I think they still need to get Dexter more into that team, because Dexter was a great player for OG, and I'm surprised OG didn't keep him, but Dexter is a very, very good player. He's really trying really hard. He gets screwed a lot by visa issues, which has probably impacted practices. Overall, they've still got great pieces in Tezes and Nertz, and they got a really inventive IGL and Kickson who could probably utilize those a lot more. The downside is Sush isn't really showing where he was previously as one of the world's best anchors when he was in Heroic. But we'll see where this one goes. Heroic has always been that weird team that's on the cusp of Tier 1, but not there either. They're becoming the new big. Like, if you got to get out Tier 1.5, you got to beat Heroic.
Yeah. No, I think I could. Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, I think I can understand all of that. Yeah.
Yep. Let's go to the next one, and this is the group of disappointment, because it's called Group D because it's group disappointment.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a bit unfortunate, the teams that are in there, and I think Aurora 2-0 or 0-2, I guess. That's just unfortunate, really.
They got 2-0'd by both Big and M80 and never took on Bestia. That's just unfortunate. Like, you got beaten by teams that are definitely better than you. But overall, with Aurora, if you want to break into that tier 1.5 bracket, you got to get maps of these teams, and you got to try to be competitive in these series. I mean, -20 round differential. Both the Brazilian teams, South American teams that had harder opponents were able to take maps off, specific teams. Just Aurora, this is just not a good tournament. I did see some bad things about Aurora overall, about possible team changes. Hopefully, obviously a result leaving the team as well. That's just not good vibes, in my opinion. I think Aurora is starting to lose a lot of its magic now.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that they need to just slow it down a little bit, and I don't think that they should be so hasty to replace the players they have. I don't think any of these guys are bad players. I think that maybe they need to just have a slowdown in the pace of, you don't want them going, okay, go, and if they make a mistake, they don't have time to address that and fix it.
Yeah.
You want to give them an opportunity to just go, okay, guys, hold on a second here. Let's rewind a bit. What was the problem? How do we fix it?
Yeah.
I think...
Because they replaced Result and they bring up Clax. That's a good replacement. Clax is a great player. It's just get the vibes right in that team, because that team was rocking when they came to Melbourne. Of course, they lost to, I think, the eventual winners of... No, they lost to MIBR in the finals. It's just that team was going from strength to strength with Result was in that roster, and the vibes are going. And now to replace it with Clax, I'm starting to think they're losing that magic. They got to just really just go back to the shed and just take a deep breath half the time.
Yeah. No, I think losing Result was very, very impactful, but I don't think that's going to be the end of the team.
Yeah.
He's a very good player, but it's not like there's no players who are the same skill level as him at the end of the day.
Yeah, Clax and Result is basically the same. For pure skill, no vibes. It's basically the same. It's a trade for trade. Clax was a star player of 9 Pandas, I believe, back in the day.
Yeah, okay.
And that entire trade of Result and Clax was really poorly handled as well, which is not a good look. Let's go.
Yeah, no, I did see that, yeah.
Now let's get to the other disappointment, M80. Oh, man. We see great things of ESL Pro League. They have basically stumbled ever since.
Yeah, I think they may be a team similar to 9Z and Legacy, what you were saying earlier, where they kind of came out of nowhere in terms of the international stage, and everyone was just like, oh, who's this team? And I think for them, losing Malbs was a big hit, but I don't think that should be taken away from the players they do have. Lake is a very, very good player, very sharp.
Yep.
And Slacks is also really good, and I think Swisher has a lot of potential as well. I think this was just a missed tournament by them, to be honest. I think they should have done better and could have, but I just think they fell a bit short, and I don't think it was necessarily anyone's fault or anything like that.
Yeah, I think overall this team's a great team. This team has great grenades, great setups, great defaults, great everything. Great rifling and trading as well. Their trading is fucking bang. There's just instant trade. They need the stamina to just maintain that level of play against better teams, because they are a very, very good system. very good vibes. You can tell in that team in particular that they want to play as a team. There's no individuals in that team. It's a team environment, and it's really good to see. They lost Malbs. It sucks. M80, the org, are really like, we don't want to be a feeder team. We want to be the team. And that's what they're trying to do here with these players in particular. They picked up Lake. Lake was a great replacement. But Lake, he had a great start against Ricky, like outside Complexity and, DSL Pro League. I mean, look at me, Ricky. He's very good on LAN, but he needs to keep that at a consistent level over time. He's a star player for M80 now. He needs to make sure that he's consistent and consistently getting those top frags in particular. And also, make sure remember, it's a team-based game as well, because you got to remember, when M80 was originally made, Rek was actually a star player as well. Rek changed his role to playing a support player as well, to make the team work. And their main aim was to get into the NA back into the scene, basically. So Swisher came in as well, and Swisher has been a massive servant of the NA scene for a really long time, and I really respect Swisher and his grind in particular. That he's had so much crap thrown his way, which is unbelievable. Personally and in CS.
Yeah, no, I think M80 is great for just the NA scene in general. I think it's fantastic that there is still competitive North American teams out there. I personally think Complexity has been missing a lot recently. They need to make some huge changes. If they don't make the major, which I don't think they will, I think that they're going to just make a massive restructure. I think that the teams that they're going to be going up against is just going to be, honestly, not doable for them. They've got to beat Liquid. That's going to be rough. M80. I think M80 has a really good chance of going through here. They do have 7 positions available, but I think with the way that Complexity handles themselves sometimes, if they have a bad start to the RMR, they're probably not going to finish it. I don't think.
I was going to say overall the NA, it's NA RMR is so weird. It's always sometimes teams that really shouldn't be in there get in there. We had Fluxo one time, a few other teams that just go 0-3 in the major. The NA RMR is kind of random. I'm going to say right now, not even the teams that should get in there are going to get in there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of missed opportunities when it comes to the RMR for North America,
and South America, because MIBR missed out the last major. It was just what is this? Because we had Imperial and a few other teams. It's just what? We had Legacy as well. It was just what?
Yeah, no, I think part of me kind of wishes that there was the ability to have North American and South American RMRs separate, just because I think there is so many South American teams, but there's not enough North American teams to facilitate that. You'd have teams that they have no chance really. If you went that far to get that low of a quality, if that makes sense.
Yep. Let's talk about best year overall. I feel with best year in particular, this is a honeymoon period. Not too much needs to be noted out of that. They played well to get into a play-in spot. Obviously was eliminated by 3D Max. I think overall, this is a honeymoon period. We want to see more from Bestia. If Bestia can do this on a consistent basis where they make deep runs, then they're a team to be competitive. But at the moment, I think it's because a lot of teams didn't have much demos to study them on that they get caught out, basically.
Yeah, no, I think that would make sense. Yeah, similar to 9Z and Legacy. Yeah,
but this is before when they this is the initial stage that they did really well at. Best year overall, I think they need the improvements so they don't become a 9Z in Legacy. Is that they need to make sure that they're always constantly improving and changing the defaults and whatnot, because otherwise they're going to end up with their hitting the wall effectively. But it's most likely than not they're going to hit the wall, because most teams do this anyway, that they just hit the wall because they may think they're doing enough, but they don't know how much changes and differences is going to be enough.
Yeah, no, it's definitely difficult to get over that final rung in the ladder to take the step you need to kind of break out of regional Counter-Strike. It's, region to region, that step is bigger. And for South America, I feel like it's not that big, but it's still big enough where it will catch you off guard. Because you can be top 5 in your region for South America, and then play against these European teams like Big and 3D Max, and it's just not enough. So they need to, like you were saying, they're basically where Legacy and 9Z were in Pro League, where they need to acknowledge the fact, okay, hey, what we did worked. It now no longer will work. What will work from now on? And make that change happen now instead of waiting for their next tournament to come around and then realizing it. Because then they're going to be a month behind, 2 months behind on figuring that out.
It's the worst part is, like, I'm just going to say here right now, they're going to hit a wall. You can't prevent this sort of stuff. Like, you think you've changed enough, but, it's going to be the same. That's my opinion. Like, they're going to hit the wall. It just depends how hard they hit it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yep. Let's talk about Big. This was a big opportunity missed. Okay, I made the pun in the end. Okay, I made the pun.
It's got to be made every time.
They fumbled against OG. Okay, they could have been in a domestic LAN final because it was in Berlin.
Yeah.
They won the first map against OG. This team is too good to not be having a LAN final. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. I think a 13-1 loss against OG, you never want to see a washout that bad.
And the final map as well, like, that's just lack of fight, lack of intensity, lack of effort. Like, that's the third map, especially when you lose a close one of 13-11. You got to find that second wind or second gear to get your team over the line. That's the part where gutsiness and grit is so important. And you just got to find it within you to get over, okay? This was an anti-phase, okay? Phase is one of those teams where, like, they'll take you to full 5 maps, mate. Like, doesn't matter where they get it from, they'll take you to full 5 maps and drag you down of experience. Big, that third map was a capitulation and was extremely disappointing for them.
Yeah. No, I think if you're going to put up that good of a fight against your opponent's map pick, you have to do way better against a map you were willing to play.
Yeah.
That's a pretty bad fumble. If you say to yourself, yeah, guys, we can play Ancient, and then you get one round, I don't think you can play Ancient, to be honest. So they definitely need to go back to the drawing board and figure out how they've dropped the ball that badly.
Yeah, it could be OG playing well as well, but I think overall, like, when your back's against the walls and you got that domestic tournament where you're going to have home crowd advantage as well, and you are not making it to that LAN, you need to fight a lot more. Like, it needs to be a lot more fight shown by Big, okay? A lot more fight. And there was just none shown, given the meekness of that scorers line. They may say, yeah, we're trying to fight a lot, but, like, the score on the board says 13-1. It was just, you got battered and bruised by OG. You don't lose close 13-1s, because if you're losing close 13-1s, let's just say, for example, if you're on the T side and you're versing a CT side, they're eventually going to have no weapons if they're close.
Yeah.
Yep. And I can say that's pretty much it. Storylines with Thunderpick. I've got to say, I think the best storylines overall is Mongos. Now, I think it's in top 5 of winning prize money as well. So Mongos have done very well. That Gambit for Mongos, because Mongos didn't enter the ECL for Asia. That Gambit has come off nicely for them. Where they'll say in all these other tournaments and not participate in the ECL has come off so good for them because they've done so much more. And now they've most likely got that world ranking spot that they'll get invited to a lot of big tournaments because of it. And it's such a big gamble because M80 didn't want to take that gamble because M80 still participate in the American ECL. And M80's got that case as well. Do they drop their ECL spot to go and play in Europe to play against Tier 2 teams and take the same gamble that Mongos have took? Because Mongos moved down to Asia to go to Europe. Do they make that gamble? So M80's got a decision to make, and Mongos made a decision and have come off handsomely from it. I think Mongos will get invited to a lot of Tier 1 tournaments, all because of that gamble. And whoever facilitated that gamble in particular for the Mongos deserves a big fucking pat on the back because it's come off so well for them.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think when you acknowledge that, or it's almost like acknowledging that your scene, your home scene is worse than what you could be playing at. I think if you can acknowledge that and action that, I think that's huge. Like, even if when you look at FlyQuest, they're still in the Australian, I guess Oceanic ECL.
Yeah.
But realistically, they could probably afford to not play in that, stay in Europe full time, like the Mongols, and then go to ECL events like they did at Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
They took home Atlanta, and now we get 3 teams in Pro League next season. That's absolutely huge. So I think that FlyQuest should be willing to take that risk as well, because I think if they're able to get more experience, they already get plenty as it is, but I think if they get even more, especially at tournaments, not just through scrims, they'll have the opportunity to get that extra step of growth that they need, and it'll free up a spot in our ECL. It will push FlyQuest to a better level of play, and I think overall it'll be better for everyone, how it's been for Mongols and the Asian ACL.
I think overall, I don't think, I guess I'll be honest, I don't think FlyQuest are there yet. FlyQuest aren't in a spot in the scene where they're in a top 16 like Mongols are, when they'll get invited to every event. I think FlyQuest are like, between 20 to 30. I like that gamut for FlyQuest will be 50-50. For M80, probably be 65-35 on whether they make it or not. FlyQuest, I'll say, depends on the major where they go. If they get to Legend stage in the major, like if they get to that final stage, yes, I'm going to agree with you. They should probably make the move out to Europe because their rankings is going to go from top 20 to easily top 10 if they make that elimination stage and dig deep. I don't think they will, personally. I think they'll make the major and go out in the first stage. Probably 2-3. If they make it to the elimination stage or the second stage or whatever it's called, it's badly named, okay? They are doing really, really good. They are doing unbelievable in particular. Now, to flick onto that topic, we're going to flick onto the Asia RMR because that's going to be the next topic we talk about. So Asia RMR is expanded to 8 teams. Well, actually, it's always been 8 teams since the last one. And I've got to say, we've talked about the Mongols. We expect Mongols to go through. Okay, Mongols are better than Mongols are better than any other team at this tournament by miles. Okay, they probably could sleep through their bracket because literally, let's just say for this one, okay, they've got a BO1 against Alter Ego. They'll have a BO3 against Lin Vision or Drillers. They can beat all of those teams very easily.
Oh, absolutely, no question about it.
Yep.
I mean, I think that the Asia RMR this time around it's really interesting because there's no teams that you look at and you're like, oh, you know what? There's actually kind of a good chance this team could make it. It's kind of either they will or they won't with a lot of these teams. I think Mongols will make it. I think FlyQuest will make it. I don't think that Drillers is going to make it. I hate to say that. Everyone seems to like them.
Did I spot an Oni pixel hater here?
It's hot take. I don't think Drillers is going to make it through. It's a great idea and everything, but I think that Lin Vision is probably a bit more put together than Drillers is. I think the only 2 teams that I wouldn't be able to pick between is actually Talon and Lin Vision. And, I might be saying Talon because I want 2 Australian teams in the major. But, I do think that they will... I do think that they're better than the teams below them. I think that they're better than GR, Rare Atom, and Alter Ego. Yeah. I think that they'll be able to beat all of them. Drillers might give them some contention, but I think that they could still beat them as well. But I think it would come down to the calling by Azza in that kind of regard.
Yep.
And then it would just be between Talon and Lin Vision in the end, I think. So I'm hoping it's Talon.
Yeah.
But realistically, it could be. You could go either way. I think that they'll both fall to the low bracket though.
Yeah. Okay.
I think FlyQuest is.
Let's go for it in particular. Like Alter Ego, like I go by team. Alter Ego are basically a large range of different players put together. Okay. But, that's pretty they're pretty decent. You got Dobu Bentet, you got the Polish CS superstar. I mean, obviously Singaporean, but that's the main. You got Zion as well. Zion, very good player to talk to. I talked to him when I was doing some casting in the Asia region as well. Very down-to-earth guy. 8Kit, he streams. He's a streamer, does a lot of other stuff as well. And also he's a professional player. He was in that Araya roster that surprised the scene, North Macedonian, that produced Sasanito, Kixin and whatnot as well. Freeman has been around at Silu for ages. I don't think I see them going very far. Lin Vision, I don't see Lin Vision making it because Rare Atom exists. The Drillers Lin Vision will be an interesting BO1. The BO3 against Mongols is going to be boring as batshit because Mongols would beat them 2-0, beat whoever wins 2-0. Yeah. Rare Atom v GR, I don't really rate GR at this tournament. I think GR are going to get bundled out early. I think GR is the weakest team at this tournament. Rare Atom are very good. Okay, I rate Rare Atom highly. Because Kaze, somebody, Child King and stuff like that, I know they've done a few changes, but they've still got a very good team in that roster. Their best BO3 will be between FlyQuest and Rare Atom. You'll see some high-quality CS. I reckon FlyQuest will win that. But it'll be a very high-quality upper semi-finals. That could go anywhere. I think FlyQuest is favoured there. The lower bracket, especially the lower final, is an absolute brawl. Other than GR and Talon, I would say probably go out early, but it'll be an absolute brawl between those 6 other teams for that one spot because there's reasons why Rare Atom should get in, why Lin Vision should get in, or Drillers should get in. I reckon Drillers is going to secure that last spot purely because of the fact that they've got Sineri, who's a very good player. They've got Hadji, Mestal, Fan, Waro. Hadji's a very good rifler as well. Rare Atom have got so many reasons why they should be in as well. It's going to be probably Rare Atom and Drillers in the grand final for the lower final, and I reckon Rare Atom will probably win that. So I reckon it's going to be Mongos, FlyQuest, and Rare Atom. Talon, I don't give too much in particular. They're bottom tier 2 EU, like in the bottom middle region, and you're versing Rare Atom, Lin Vision, and Drillers, who are probably in the mid to upper tier. Lin Vision has definitely taken a large beating compared to where they were. I think it's really unlucky for Talon to draw FlyQuest out of all teams, because I think Drillers, Alter Ego, and Talon, you guys haven't been paying attention as well as GR, have been grinding a lot in the background to try and get their spots around, in the same order. Because basically, Lin Vision fell down to 4th, which means you want to be 5th to take on that team because Rare Atom leapfrogged them. So basically, Mongos is number 1, Lin Vision's 4, Rare Atom's 3, FlyQuest is 2. And they wanted to take on Lin Vision first because Lin Vision is a very, very weak invite. And unfortunately, Drillers got that spot. And Talon were going to tier 2 tournaments. GR were going for ECL and other tournaments. Drillers were going to every tier 2 tournament, Alt Ego as well, to try and target these teams. And obviously, unfortunately, Talon came out the short straw. They could have actually been taking on Rare Atom. They were at one stage, Talon were going to be taking on Rare Atom, but GR leapfrogged them. And overall, a lot of these 5th to 8th teams have been grinding tournaments, not just for experience, but for seeding as well, because they were trying to target Lin Vision. Overall, we've got to see what we find out here. I feel like 2 teams will definitely make it is Mongos and FlyQuest. They will definitely make it, given Alistair has got... Ali's gotten a lot better. It started in ESL Pro League where he was hitting shots that he needed to hit and hitting them on a consistent basis, and then just blossomed in ESL Challenge Atlanta where he was hitting shots that he needed to hit and more. And the massive changes, a lot of people the massive changes of just Alistair hitting the shots he needs to hit has completely changed his game. That's all it is. That's all it had to be. And a lot of people are making it so complex, that he has to do this, has to do that. No. If he hits the shots that he needs to hit, the entire dynamic will change and they'll start killing everyone and winning games.
Yeah. No, I think FlyQuest, if they're able to keep on target almost, if they're able to just keep on track with how they're going at the moment, then I think they have a really good chance to make a pretty decent run at the major. But I think, again, it depends on seeding and at the end of the day for the actual opening stage. But
they'll probably be versing G2 first round, mate. Okay, with their seeding.
If they cop luck like that, then I mean, not much that they're going to be able to do. But I'm really hoping that FlyQuest is able to make it through the opening stage and actually get through to the elimination stage. But I think that might be wishful thinking, to be totally honest. But I think FlyQuest has improvement to be made. I think that they're probably a bit too hung up on wanting to keep some of the players that they perhaps shouldn't be keeping. But I'm not going to comment on that. They are a lot better than me. But I think that there's room for improvement by replacing some players on the roster from what I've been seeing from their playing.
Well, overall, as I said, I've said this many times, I've been on record saying this, their roster management has been fine. I'm not going to disagree with any of the roster management. The only times where you would replace a player would have been IM Dallas. And IM Dallas, you could have put that to an aberration because they had a good ESL Pro League. They had a good other tournaments, okay? IM Dallas could have been an aberration because there were really fucking good teams there. Every fucking good team was there. Big got eliminated, okay? And Big's the team that they couldn't beat. And Big would consider a backwater team in that one. So you could be like, oh yeah, we're versing top 16 teams. What do you expect? And then they perform... This is before, obviously, the cutoffs. They performed badly at the next event. I forget what it was. I think it was Cologne, was it? I forget. They performed really badly at the play-ins. And then they performed just as worse at the ESL Pro League. but you can't cut players then because the deadlines have passed.
Yeah.
So you can't remake the team. You know, that's what I meant. Like the only time they could remake the team would be after the major.
Yeah, now that's what I think. I think depending on how deep of a run they can make into the major will honestly play the biggest contributing factor on who stays and, you know, if anyone goes. Because I think the only players that I would look at replacing is maybe Liaz, but I think he has impactful rounds, but I don't think they're frequent enough. And I also would look at replacing Alistair. But if he's able to step up his game like he has, like he did at Atlanta, if he's able to continue that, then probably not. But again, that's a pretty big if, I think. You know, considering how long he has been mediocre for an AWPer, it would have to be he have to put up a pretty good performance at the major to kind of prove to everyone of like, hey, look, guys, see, I am actually getting better. But you know, I think that. I love seeing a full Australian roster. You know, that's always been a dream to see them play all the time. So I don't want to say get a European AWPer like everyone else does, but I think Alistair needs to change something to get back on top of things.
I think his routine at the moment is pretty good. Like he's definitely improved. Like SL Pro League showed a lot of improvement, even though they performed really poorly there. He was still consistently getting those shots against Sangal. I think a lot of people were very hard on him in that Sangal game. He only missed 2 shots and created a unbelievable 1-for-1 clutch, which was incredible on Vertigo. He has whiffed a lot in particular. I'm not gonna say that's bad. Like he's improved immensely.
Yeah.
With Liaz is a really tough one because Liaz also made that miracle round possible in the SL Challenger Atlanta because he landed that grenade on JDC's head that killed him. No one talks about it. I've actually gone through that round bit by bit, but if that HE grenade doesn't land on JDC's head, that doesn't happen because JDC's open, he's free, he can stop Liaz from basically pressuring Tabson. Because obviously Tabson burns to death and is pressured by Alistair and Liaz. And Rigon's backstab will get enough time that he can take out Ali from behind. Ali won't be training on a short. So that's what makes it happen as well. Liaz, I think Liaz stays on the roster overall. It's a really hard one to FlyQuest with like their roster manager because you don't want to disrupt the team as well because you got a very good rifling core in that team led by Ince.
Yeah.
And also I'm going to say the only way if Ince ever is leaving FlyQuest, it is because he's been bought out by another team. Okay, I'm just going to put that now. The only reason he ever leaves is that he's been bought out by another team because Ince has the capacity to just go onto a tier 1 team and be like either support or the main rifler in particular. Like he has a large skill set. And also can be a secondary call in the team. And I'm not biased because his name is also Josh, but that's what he has. Like I told him this at IMC. I'm like, mate, you can fucking do anything you want. You put your mind to because you've got the clutch capacity as a support player. Because your support player clutches when they have shit weapons like SoundG, for example, being able to clutch with a deagle. Your main rifler, great spray control and whatnot as well. He has been having issues with packet loss, and I've been noticing as well, where like he isn't getting the shots that he normally gets, and it's probably frustrating him as well. Overall, like with the RMRs, as I said before, Mongols, FlyQuest were Adam for me, and for yourself was Mongols, FlyQuest, and Talon.
I'm hopeful on the Talon pick. You know, realistically, probably Rare Adam or Drillers, but I'm hopeful for Talon.
my next guest on Sunday has told me that Talon aren't doing crap in the RMR. So that's evidence-y, by the way. That's what he said. He ain't doing crap in the RMR. And
only time will tell.
I tend to agree with him. Okay, I tend to agree with him actually. He is very good. Yeah. Next up, we're going to go with the last topic, which is going to be the Sparks Cup. We got some local cash cups back in the ANZ scene, and I am happy about this, okay? Because there's only that. Okay, so it used to be. So I talked about this before, about 2 hours before. So if you guys are still listening from 2 hours, thank you guys so much for supporting the body. And if you guys are still watching from the start, really, really appreciate it. So I talked about cash cups. So the ESA cash cups used to be held every fortnight. Okay. You go to the ESA organizer now. It is only the Impact cash cups, which not much people attend. Okay. Because obviously not many female teams in Australia. There are basically zilch cash cups anywhere in the OC scene. and a lot of teams used to enter with different rosters and whatnot. Like, you had your Omicella playing with Rooster and stuff like that as well. There's just none of that in the OC scene. Because I looked at it, I'm just like, oh, where's the next Cash Cup? I found it odd that I haven't had a Cash Cup to cast. There's none. They're gone.
Yeah.
And that's what's been missing. So if ANZC can do this sort of stuff, where they can offer some sort of Cash Cup or some competitive every fortnight or so, it'd be really, really integral. At the moment, they really haven't. Okay, they haven't. Their last Sparks Cup was last year. They did do a Land of Craft previously as well. It's the hardest part is trying to do something consistently in this scene because Conky, who obviously owns ANZC's main goal is to be sustainable. And he doesn't want to be one person particularly that just offers a lot of money, has one tournament and then dips out because they spent all their sponsorship money. He doesn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And it's understandable. But the downside of doing something like that is the death by 1,000 cuts, where you become irrelevant slowly because the other teams are willing to put the money up.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, I think his ideas worked and he's avoided the death by 1,000 cuts. He's done a lot of lands. He's tagged up with Defrag as well with Mav, and Mav's very, very good for the scene in particular. Mav's amazing. And it's not biased because I write for their stuff, but Mav is really, really good with the grassroots and also really good with, professionalism and also getting the studio set up for me. He got all the lights, told me which ones to get. He got me to go into IKEA and, I was talking to him about it and stuff like that as well. He's very, very good overall in setting it up and also making sure things are done professionally. At DreamHack Melbourne, he was very, very good in getting the thingos for craft to record. He had more dread editing and stuff like that as well. He knows the people and the places that they need to be. So overall, getting Defrag, I think that's a possibility they could make that more of a fortnightly event. Even a monthly event is great, okay? Even baby steps, you get your monthly, you get your fortnightly. I think the good thing as well, because you did mention it off stream, that you need an ANZC subscription. I think that's brilliant because that also generates money for the scene overall, which means generates money for the prize pools to be bigger if they have that sort of circuit going in. And that's probably the main income stream that Conky's probably relying on in particular to get prizes as well as sponsorships from Zowie and whatnot as well. And I think that's probably what you're going to need to have it be sustainable. Now, the hardest thing about the hub overall is that you want the hub to have, big, good, serious players and good atmosphere in it. And that's probably the hardest thing to do as a hub. I think overall, Sparks Cup's a good sense in the right direction. I want more of them. That's what they're working on, and that's what they're committed to.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. I think I'm really personally looking forward to the Spark Cup because it's an opportunity to just play more Counter-Strike, and there's really just the opportunity for that just really isn't there in the scene. You play 2 matches a week for ESCA League, and then potentially 6 scrims as well. Scrims just don't carry the same weight as an official match. It's not as tense. The feeling just isn't there, and especially if it's a tournament like this that I'm no doubt is going to be getting streamed. It's going to be just generally an awesome feeling to be watched by however many people decide to show up and play in front of people. How often is an ESCA League match streamed? Not very often. So if you've got an entire tournament...
Are you talking about Open, I presume, right?
Yeah, sorry, Open, yeah. So Open's it's just not streamed very often.
ECL at every game casted besides 2. He's just going to put it out there.
yeah. No, ECL's perfectly fine, but as an Open player, it feels so much cooler knowing that your match is being casted. We've had a handful casted by the Vantage caster, only Potence,
and Flamboyant as well.
Yep, and they do a great job casting our matches, but they've only been focusing on the main roster because obviously they're a much better team, so a lot more people are interested in watching that. But when we have the opportunity to be streamed, no one's going to turn that down. No one's going to be like, no, actually, I don't want you to stream my game. I don't want to be publicized unless there's a suspicious reason for that.
The funny thing was, this was an issue in StarCraft 2 where they didn't want specific casters in their lobbies to stream their games. It's funny that you mentioned that again. There are actually people who don't want people casting their games because there was an issue with my mate Base Trade where there were certain games he couldn't cast because the players didn't like him. So they're like, no, I can't play this guy in our lobby. But anyways, continue.
Yeah, no, I just think this is a great step forward. And like you were saying, having fortnightly or monthly tournaments that are run over 1 or 2 weekends is just, it's just awesome. It's not going to be, there's no way, it's going to be negative, really, I don't think, because it'll give more experience, it'll encourage more people to get involved, and I think for the scene, what's going to be a massive leap forward is going to be when Face It finally decides that 67 teams is actually enough to add an intermediate league, and we can finally get these teams that are dominating Open League out of here so that they stop shitting on all of these newer teams.
Yeah.
And I think that the Spark Cup will also encourage stuff like that, because you'll see these teams play and you'll go, oh wow, this is really cool. I could play for prize money over a weekend, you know, get some friends together or whatever and play. And if they do it right in terms of how seeding would work, if they're pairing you up against a team that's relatively similar in skill, people are going to have a lot more fun, right? But if you're doing like, you know, if you're doing like an Art of War or a Vantage, and then they're versing some level 5 team, why is that level 5 team going to show up next time? So I think that's something they need to be careful of, is making sure that it's relatively balanced and spread out, so that these level 5 teams and players aren't just getting absolutely dumpstered on by these teams that have played ECL and played at, you know, a much higher level.
Yeah, I've always said this as well. Like, there's a lot of social teams mixed up with proper teams in this Open League at the moment. That it doesn't need to be addressed. I believe Musawi, which is the Face It admin, I don't know how to pronounce his name. He has been trying to get, you know, enough teams over the line. He did issue a lot of codes to like casters and also stuff like that as well to try and get the 70 teams needed. I reckon he's doing a pretty great job in trying to relay to the Face It guards, hey, can we get this changed or anything like that? Because a lot of these admins in particular, like we had admins in the Perfect World stuff about the start times, really trying to, you know, advocate for us. Like I talked to Tommy, Tommy's Lurpus, sorry, my bad. Toomba, which is one of the admins. Mitch as well, capping, he's also one of the admins for, what was it, they got, I forget it's called Challenger Mode, that's right. They were really trying to go on and be like, hey guys, can you move this to this time? Hey guys, can you move it to this time? They were really trying to advocate us to move that major time. And Musawi has been very, on the front foot in the CS2 Discord that Tito made on that as well for the Australian scene. And I feel like Musawi is trying his best in trying to get this done. I think 70 is probably something he negotiated down to the Face It admins. And I think we could be close enough to getting that 70 in particular. I've seen a lot more activity overall. I saw a lot of people interested in that CS2 tournament in PAX, and a lot of people who recognize who I was and stuff like that, because I was watching the games like before they got onto the stage. So I think we're doing pretty well. Also, not to mention as well, PAX also had an arena tournament for CS2, and it's more of a proof of concept. So as I talked to Flam about it as well, that whether it's a good thing to have at PAX, which is good, that means another LAN is here. We also had that Fortress LAN with Defrag. That was also part of the ANZC, the locals that I went to as well. So I think we're getting some stuff back in particular. Could we have stuff planned further down the line? Most likely, because a lot of these tournaments in particular were big successes. I felt like the big successes. I have no idea about the internal drive at it. But I felt like most of those LANs and tournaments were big successes compared to what we've seen recently. And also, not to mention as well, there's been a big void where LPL's been, because LPL, no one has a good thing to say about LPL from everyone I've talked to. No one has said a single good thing. Okay, yeah. I talked to a lot of people. I don't want to out them, okay, at all, but they've never said a good thing. And when you have teams like FlyQuest, Rooster, and Vertex at the time avoiding your events, that's not a good sign. Yeah, and we need someone to replace that scene anyway, or that void.
Yeah, no, I think LPL definitely needs to step up, or someone else needs to, because having something aside from Open is really what the scene needs. Like, it doesn't have to be something drastically different. It just needs to offer a different level of play, so that, like you said, you can separate these social teams from these competitive teams. You know, if you look at the leaderboard right now, just about every team in the top 15 almost is drastically better than anyone below that. You know, my team's currently middle of the road, and we couldn't even think of competing with anyone in the top 15, unfortunately. Not at the moment anyway. So, you know, it's not difficult from a player's perspective to say, hey, what the hell, give us a different league. And I think Face It really needs to, next season, they honestly need to just look at it from a objective point of view and say, yeah, it would actually help the scene if we added a intermediate league with 20 spots.
Yeah.
Because it would help just about, like, think about it this way, right? Who's it going to disadvantage?
Not really many.
No one. I can't think of anyone who would be disadvantaged from a new league being added, a new level. So that needs to be the big catalyst to initiate more movement in the scene, is a new tournament organizer doing something similar to what Cyber Gaming used to be, or Face It needs to add an intermediate league for the ECA league. Because there's another problem where you have teams that go, the stepping stones or the rungs on the ladder for Australian Counter-Strike are not nearly as well polished as they are for even North America. You know, we've got the same length ladder that Europe has. Let's say their ladder has 8 steps, ours has 3 steps on it.
Yeah.
And you have to get to the same height. It's almost impossible, right? You go from Open to ECL. Most teams who go from Open to ECL can't stay there, right? Or they don't. They get beaten by teams who are already developed in that area. And then you have to go from ECL to Pro League, where you verse Tier 1 teams that are going to just absolutely wipe the floor with you. And so there's no way to play against those other best teams consistently, right? So you need something like intermediate, so that these top 20 teams in Open are only playing against each other. Yeah. And they're not playing against these bottom level teams that they're going to wipe the floor with. And they need to increase each other.
They're just inflating their own stats basically, and neither team's really improving. I feel like overall, like, you know, with ANZ Open, I think so far with the current league as it is, I think only one team has two teams stayed up, because Mantra stayed up, but they're still in relegations at the moment, so that's to be decided. But only one team has stayed up from Open, and that has been Art of War.
Art of War.
And that team is a super team in itself. So,
Terry is pretty unbelievable on Art of War.
sorry, Eddie, because I know you're probably watching at some point. Yeah, your team's not a team. That's an Open team. Okay, we can put it down to 0. Okay, no deal.
Yeah, I think the other team that went from Open to ECL pretty successfully was actually Vantage, and I'm not saying that just because I'm a part of that group, you know.
Did Vantage do that?
Yeah, so they were in ECL for 2 seasons, and the only reason they fell out this season of ECL was because they had such drastic roster changes.
I thought they
lost.
I thought they qualified for it. I don't think they got promoted from Open.
I was under the impression that they got promoted from Open, but I could be incorrect. But either way, they were able to sustain in Open with a full roster. And, you know, from my understanding, the only reason that they've unfortunately fallen out of this season of ECL is because, you know, they lost Vision and Omicella, 2 of their 2 great riflers, and they got poached by other teams, and then they struggled to fill those spots, and many complications arose from that. And now they've got this new roster. I see them being competitive in an ECL again next season, so I think that's going to be really good as well.
Yeah, let's see where they qualified from. No, Vantage qualified and Open qualifier. I was right. Yeah, it's always Omicella's fault, man. Ever since he became that what's his name, washed up old Greg, whatever. Yeah, Greg. Yeah, you know, he's washed up, mate. Like, you know. I'm trolling you, Omi. I'm trolling you, Omi. You're a great player, okay? But either way, you know,
Omicella's an interesting character, that's for sure.
So overall, they got in from the Open qualifiers, so they made it through there with Drox, Vision, Jinx, and Omicella, and Night Raid. So so overall, like in that one in particular, I don't think Vantage actually made it from Open. The Open teams, I believe, was Mindfreak, DXA, Archon, and Canada. And I think FlyQuest, because they won ANZ Champs, Bad News Kangaroos got their world ranking. And also, funnily enough, the Australian teams have been very, very good in being sportsmanlike, because Bad News Kangaroos, was it Rooster, could have actually taken the world rankings and really messed with Bad News Kangaroos, but they didn't. Because Rooster went through it, because I think Bad News Kangaroos went ESL Pro League when that happened, when some of the qualifiers were running. So Rooster participated and won it, so the world ranking would go to Bad News Kangaroos. And I think that's really sporting because those teams don't like each other and have a big rivalry. Like, not like each other personally, but they always verse each other.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that the AU scene is starting to develop pretty nicely in the ECL level.
Yeah.
I think we just need that one extra buffer in between Open and ECL.
Oh, definitely.
Because the jump from Open to ECL is unbelievable. You know, you see a team that's at the top of Open, and you know, from what someone once told me, a team is only really ready to go from Open to ECL if they just go flawless in Open. If they go flawless in Open, they'll probably be fine in ECL. But if they concede 2 maps, it's going to be pretty rough for them to stay in there, you know, or at least not get relegated, because the teams that are already in ECL are just they're just so much better, really. You know, there's not really a different way to put that other than that they're just so much better.
Yep. I talked to Kraz about this. Kraz said the exact same thing. I talked to Mitzi about this. Mitzi said the exact same thing. They had to build up a strategy binder from scratch. They did not have a strategy binder to start, and they had to build one from scratch, and they got absolutely wiped out, directly relegated. I've talked to Mantra. Mantra's already got Cheeseball on it, and Cheeseball would have been all ready to go for it, because Cheeseball, a veteran IGL, amazing player, able to scout out some amazing guys that are picked up by other teams in particular, and is able to make very decent teams out of parts that you'd be like, they're not very good on paper, but fuck me, he escaped a direct relegation slot. And like, you know, Eddie, of course, Eddie just great scouting. I mean, I think overall, I have said Oath hasn't put up the stats, but Oath has just developed nicely now. Oath has now become a win condition for that Art of War team, which is immense, and he's gone amazingly well. But yeah, overall, like, these Open teams, if they're not an Art of War, like an Art of War or a Mantra, like they don't have a veteran player who knows what you need to be an ECL, they've got bad news coming, and that's what happens at Canada event. Like, the step up from ECL from Open is huge. But Intermediate will definitely improve that. Intermediate will at least force all these teams to have a playbook. They're not going to verse some level 5 team that they can just sleep and just run over and not have to do that strategy padding. But an Intermediate league will make sure teams will have some sort of a strat book before they go into ECL and get stomped. I mean, ECL would have a good time.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's definitely important because it makes everyone better as well. You know, it raises the floor of requirement, like you were saying. They won't be versing these level 5 stompers anymore. You know, they all have to have the floor is like brought up, so they all have to have a minimum level of play. And if you can't handle that, then you'll get put direct into Open, and then someone else will be brought up. So you know, I just think that's going to be the best thing for the scene. Is that Intermediate League, or at least something else to go alongside ESCA League as a whole. You know, something a Cyber Gamer equivalent would be fantastic, or even both. You know, both would be even better. But you know, one can only dream.
Yep. Anyways, I think we'll just leave it at that for today, because I think we discussed literally everything. We've even gone into a bit of a chapter about Open and whatnot as well. But yeah, thanks for coming on, Napster. Do you have any like links or anything like that, like Twitter, Twitch, anything you want to advertise that you do tweet on or talk on or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a Twitter, and it's just Napster_CS. I'm pretty sure, from memory. So and Napster I do have a Twitch.
Yep.
Yeah, and I do have a Twitch as well. But I haven't been streaming on that one too much recently. But I am hoping to get back on top of that. So that might be popping in the next few months, who knows. But yeah, I'm just trying to get my head down and grind at the moment, and you know, get things moving with the team. That's the main focus at the moment.
Yep. Anyways, thanks for coming on. Really, really appreciate it, and getting your views on certain games and whatnot as well. And yeah, guys, make sure you visit Napster_CS on Twitter, and also make sure you follow him, give him a like to the tweets, and keep watching the Vantage TV boys as well, Vantage_TV on Twitch, because those guys will have all the Vantage games casted live by Omnipotents, and maybe you could have Napster as a guest person. You never know, because I've seen you cast games. Not seen you, I've heard you cast games.
Yeah, I have a couple of times, yeah.
Yeah, yep. So, you know, you can definitely hear his voice on there as well. Anyways, guys, thank you for being on, and thank you guys for watching, and I really, really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a lovely day. See you guys later. Peace out.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.